Hey guys, it's Farrell. We are back with a little more Space Engineers tonight because for some reason I just don't feel like playing Battletech and can't think of anything else to play right now. So figured I would do some playing around with some ideas in Space Engineers because, well, actually before I even get into any of that, if you haven't seen it on the screen yet, if you are a member of the green or blue team, please stop watching. I am entirely serious about that. I really want to keep you guys watching, but I would much rather have you guys not potentially getting spoilers off of this. If you are not a member of the green or blue team, feel free to stay tuned because I'm going to be going into showing a little bit of some of what's been going on behind the scenes, and I'm going to be using some slightly older blueprints to do it and a lot of my testing tonight. But basically, what I want to accomplish tonight is I want to play around with the radar a little more, get a bit of a better understanding of how it works and what we can expect out of it. Also, I need to figure out how to take on a tactically superior force at this point as a team, because from what we've been hearing and from what Wasted has been freely dropping in stream, and mind you, I'm taking some of that with a little bit of a grain of salt in the realm of, deceit, infected, drinking blood bags and whatnot. It definitely sounds like we are a little behind the 8 ball. We're not in a bad position, but we're not in a great position either. So, without further ado, let me just check chat real quick here. What about the pink team? Well, yeah, the pink team is a complete unknown at this point. Who knows what's going to happen? For all we know, they could show up with the Lotus. I kind of doubt it because Macor is just getting back into things, but shenanigans. I don't think we. Well, let me actually just get in and kind of show you at least one shenanigan that I've got in mind here. So, drop that and get the stream music started. That's better. Alright, so, when we last left off on the red team POV, I was frantically putting the finishing touches on something that I've been having in mind for a little while, and that something would be this. Now, this is the completed version, which I actually completed after the stream ended in my creative world, out of the blueprint of the work in progress on the current server. This is kind of what I have in mind. It's a bit of a variation on the broadside theme, except in this case, everything is woefully exposed, and yeah, it's really kind of more like a giant anti-air platform, which would be great if we were going up against fighters. Hopefully a little better against foes that are flinging around a ton of missiles, but it's probably not going to last very long. And the reason for that is, as cool as the design looks for me personally, we've got a very big vulnerability in the front and a very big vulnerability in the rear, and the weapons are probably going to be the first thing that gets shot off, because all you really have to do is blast out one block and you can knock out 3 separate weapons. We do have a little bit of an advantage in that I've put some heavy armor around core sections, and the reason why I've only done it around core sections is because, well, it makes it too heavy otherwise. Because really, the biggest weakness right now is that the other teams can come and go at will from the moon. Our team has largely been confined to space. So what I've done is this has also been quickly and hastily retrofitted to give it a little more side maneuvering, to give it some agility at least. And on the underside, I think I've got the same number of thrusters as I have on the server currently. But yeah, she is, I actually have tested her, she is hover capable in the moon, so I can bring her down safely there, but that's about it. I tried planets, and below 15,000 feet, kiss my ass goodbye, basically. So, yeah, she's 5 blocks thick, Glenn. I mean, I could put some armor in front of the thrusters, but really, this is the kind of ship that's supposed to go wading into a fight. This is the ship that accompanies the others into the fight. It's primarily an escort frigate, if anything. It's not intended to be a big fighter. Now, I've put a cockpit on the outside because the cockpit on this is hidden. If you have been watching the streams, you know where it is. Just in case there are people not watching the streams, I don't want, or who are still here from the other teams, I don't want them to know where my cockpit is. So, as far as maneuverability, I'm pretty happy with her. I mean, just to give you a little bit of an idea, because I have not been really tooling around in this thing on the stream, but she has a bit of an acceleration curve to her, but once she gets on it, she is pretty darn quick on her feet. That's why I added the extra side thrust, because now she's far more capable of changing directions, a bit more sedate, well, not quite as sedately. Before she was very much a pain. I mean, I'm still not making any sharp turns. I could if I want to, because I retained all of the gyro settings that I had, which are ridiculously aggressive, so that I can actually turn in space if I have to. Now, you'll have heard in the background, I've had, there's a problem right there, right off the bat. This is why I do testing. Problem number one is that extra side thrust added is indeed going to cook a turret. So, fortunately, I do not have this in place on the server yet. I need to recess those one further if I'm going to do this. Hang on a sec while I get this fitted up. That was lovely to see that happen. Because working in... The real big problem is you can't very easily target blocks in creative in this area because the coverage of all those turrets. Yeah, it's a pain. Can't believe that Keen still has not opted to do anything about something that clearly does not need that amount of space to work in. I should be clear. Oh, yeah, that's a little less than ideal there. I think this is the heavy armor belt here, if I remember right. Or did I do the heavy armor in that spot? You have that there. Let's get rid of you real quick. And okay, no, you are light. All right. So, yep, I need to just do this properly. It's gonna be a pain. I'm gonna have to go in and grind that down. But, on the other hand, extra armor on the thrusters doesn't hurt, but it leaves these guys, I like them feeling that exposed, unfortunately. But if that is what must be done to stop cooking my own turrets, I guess that's what must be done. At least she'll retain her mobility, and that's the real key thing there. Actually, what I could do is... I'm thinking of this. Let's find heavy armor. Small turrets are 2. Large smalls are... I think those still go out 3 if I remember right. Okay, so less than ideal setup here now. Oh well. Such as it is. Because this was built in creative, I haven't gone back and actually given it proper mirror mode yet either, which is why this side's not done. But that's okay. For something that was... I mean, I'll be brutally honest, this is the first time I've ever tried to do a large ship small. It's not quite that easy. I'm kind of happy with what I've got on board here. I still have, despite this only being 5 blocks high, I still have a jump drive on board. I still have batteries on board. I still have multiple reactors. I can cover multiple points of failure from an infrastructure standpoint, and that's, you know, not even considering some of the stuff that you can't see under the hood, but yeah. The thing is also the radar doing a happy little job chiming every time I get in, but... Oh, that's right, I don't have... There we go. Okay, so radar is picked up 2 asteroids at about 15 kilometers off. One's out of render distance, one's barely... It's a donut one there. Got another one over there. But you'll note I'm not picking up anything further out, despite the fact that I've got stuff definitely over at Thug Space 1. Fix my hydros here real quick, because that group is now going to be broken. See you undo what I just did. Yes, you did. What the heck, game? Space Engineers has been very wonky as of late. Or it just does things randomly, it feels like. Alright, so let me go back and play around with the radar here real quick, and also actually check out chat. Draw the turret far away from vital area. Well, I mean, that's the problem, is going with the decoys. That's actually one of the big fears I've got going up against some of the stuff that supposedly Wasted has on Green Team. Because if they're making extensive use of decoys, then a turret ship like this becomes completely useless. Because there's no way I can really... I could take control of the missile turret, basically, or one of the guns, and that's it. There's no way without the programming block to be able to slave everything together. And yeah, just to refresh everyone, if you haven't seen the other VODs, or you've tried to go to Wasted Stream and only see the Green Team view, there's a little folder-like icon with a left-right arrow on it at the bottom right of the screen, kind of in the same place that you would find the settings and the ability to choose your quality of the video. It's down there. You click on that, and it will pop up the POVs on the right side of the screen. You select one, and then once you've got the one you want, you hit the little X at the top right corner of that video preview, you know, the thumbnails, and it'll close it out, and you can continue watching the video. It does not work on mobile unless you are using a browser to view the video. If you're using the YouTube app itself, they do not support the POV views through that. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Don't know why YouTube has not gotten around to making that work, but that's what we're kind of stuck with, unfortunately. Let's see if this is still... Okay, yep, she's still there. Okay. So let's play around with the radar. Because I've never actually used this particular mod before. What I'm going to do is put her in passive, and passive automatically kicks the power consumption back to 800 kilowatts. Per testing, we found you do not have to have the radar outside of your vehicle. It does do ray tracing supposedly, but I'm not exactly sure how it's doing it in such a way that it is not doing it from being blocked. But I'm going to be playing around with that just to confirm that too. So on passive, you can see I've already lost that asteroid that's over there. That's gone. There's that asteroid right ahead there. That's not showing up. I'm completely deaf, dumb, and blind with this setting. So already not feeling good about having had that in place most of last week. Let's set to active, and this is the minimum amount of power that you can put in on active. You can also see I have turned off the show only hostiles. That's why I'm hoping that I will eventually detect a grid, but I don't think I am. No update there, huh? So that's kind of scary, actually. Let's go up to, let's see. As far as onboard power goes, got the 6 batteries here. So that's, I say use half the power coming out of the batteries. That's going to be 6 milliwatts of battery. So I can do 3.6 gigawatts. radar can do that or get close to it. Let's bump it up to... we'll double it. So active and still nothing. That's kind of sad for escalation. What about doubling it again? Now, mind you, I've only got one radar on this thing, so... Decoys on pistons attached to rotor. Oh, God. Knowing my luck, I'd managed to spear my own reactor on the thing. I mean, in all honesty, to talk about decoys, there is something I could do that I just kind of thought of. And we're going to see how that plays out in a moment. But I want to see what's going on with this radar, because this is doubled again. Huh. I don't think you really get much out of having a single radar on your craft. Can't double it, fine. Just go to the max. Okay, that did trigger it. 50,000 or 50 megawatts? Wow. That's kind of sad. What if I drop down to 4? I mean, granted, these are targets, you know, asteroids that I'm detecting. They're not active targets, so at least as far as scouting out stuff out there, 30,000 is good. 25. That got me out there okay. I mean, the key thing that I'm trying to figure out here is just how close an enemy is going to have to be to pick up where we're at. And also for me to be able to pick up an enemy out there. 1,500? Okay, that lost one of them. The one that was further away. So that's... okay, that's 15 megawatts. So basically a battery and a quarter of a second one output. Or I'm going to need reactors. Basically a dedicated small reactor just to that. Okay. That's doable. I mean, that's still an hour worth of power as far as the craft goes, and I can always knock off the ions to save a little more. But I haven't picked up any grids out in that direction. That's the worrying part. No, I've got stuff out there. Okay, so we just picked up that asteroid down there. Okay, yep, we got all of them. All 3 of those. Okay. Craft, so you guys can... approach Thug Space 1 here. There are grids out here. In fact, there's one that I've got that's a prototype for a large ship that I should really definitely be able to pick up on at a decent range. And we just picked up that asteroid that just popped in. 15K is not a lot. That's really not a lot of even like advanced warning or anything there. There's another asteroid. They all they're all pretty clustered together closely on this map. Probably not so much on ours. Big asteroid. Asteroid. I do have an antenna on board, and what I've done is I've set the antenna to barely encompass a little beyond the craft. Passive radar on the main expensive ships, and the actives on the ones that are expendable. The problem is the passives are junk. Actually, I mean, let me show you guys here. I will kick this over to passive. That's what passive is getting. And unfortunately, as far as the expensive ships go, those are the ones that you generally do want to have an idea of what is around you. I mean, that's kind of my thought on it at this point. Turn that back on and poof, we got everything back again. It's still less than ideal. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the different modes, basically. Filter out non-functional grids. That would probably be power source, ship controller, and stationary have a hardened container. That would be nice. So that's probably what I would do. Thank you, game, for flagging every possible asteroid in the area. Can you tell what density settings I'm running on this world for the asteroids right now? It's far higher than it is in PvPvP map. Should definitely be picking up something as I come in, hopefully. Let's just turn this on, period. The great news is at least they paint them, at least the asteroids, as white. The friendlies will pop up on the screen as green. Yeah, passive only detects active radar, but that's the problem, is if I'm out hunting someone and I can see an asteroid, in all honesty, what I'm probably going to do is turn off my active radar. And at that point, I'm going to be listening on passive only if I'm trying to hunt someone. Because then that gives less of a chance of me being picked up, pretty much. So my thought of using passives as a bit of a radar picket, it's not really going to pan out all that well, unfortunately. I wish I had a speed mod installed right now. Hitting all of these asteroids, but... And this is the part that's also worrying, too. I mean, this is a single large reactor, a single large grid, small reactor, one radar block. And I'm identifying all the asteroids in the area. Okay, now, if I were to pump this up, like, say I stop right here, and I juice this sucker. So I'm picking up asteroids that are 24, 25, almost 25 kilometers out right now. Fortunately, I'm not picking up the moon. But yeah, that's... all I really have to do at this point is juice the reactor momentarily and... oh, hey, look what I can do. I can copy to clipboard. I now have the GPS of that entity there. So all I have to do is do that and then pop it immediately back to passive. If I've got someone on, say I'm flying the ship and I've got someone in the gunnery chair working, you know, radar officer basically, a Rio, then it's a very trivial thing to go out and just do one quick blast, you know, have a jump drive spooled up ready to go somewhere, do a quick blast to find out what's out, you know, out in the distance somewhere, and then jump. And at that point, I've been compromised, and I am going to be lucky if I even know it at that point. Back to one reactor on that. Now, the other thing I could do would be to tuck more radars onto it, but I'm hesitant to do that because that definitely is going to increase the signature there. And just to confirm, I do have plenty of grids out here, including a couple of copies of the Battle Pancake around. Actually, I think these might be bits of shrapnel, if anything. But I definitely have some stuff out here. Let's go ahead and get that started back up. Instead of copying... No, I would not toggle them on and off the HUD. Chris F, what we're doing is... you guys don't see it on the series, but what we're doing, and I suspect... I'm pretty sure Green Team is probably doing this as well, and maybe Blue. Just based on some comments that Bowman has said. What we're doing is we're copying the GPSs out into TeamSpeak chat and distributing them that way, because the problem is the faction chat, or basically the chat period, it doesn't matter whether you're setting it to your faction or not. If faction chat is visible if you're in radio range. So the problem is that you, oh, good grief, all these asteroids. You go out into, you get close enough, and if you're close enough to another team, you start pacing GPS and, you know, what you think is secure chat. It actually isn't. It's visible through the chat pane, the comms pane, to anyone in radio broadcast range. So, I mean, it's basically, it makes sense too. I mean, you're on the radio, and okay, Space Engineers just doesn't have multiple frequencies on the radio. So, I mean, at this point, we've basically, well, it's even the second it pops in the render range is the second I actually see it. Which makes me wonder if that's going to be effective on the server or not, because typically distances on the server don't work quite as well. But yeah, that's what we've even given up on the GPS LCDs, because frankly, all someone has to do is get into the base, grind it down to hack it, weld it back up real quick, and they've got all of our GPSs. So, Lord, at all these asteroids. Just picked up another one. Well, I know how to easily search out asteroids with this thing. This actually would be nice to... I mean, keeping in mind, I'm playing around with the large grid version. I don't know how well the small grid version works. We don't have access to the small grid version. All we have is just the large grid one. The thing that's worrying me, let me go ahead and stop here and jack up the antenna here. So we're good at that point. Radar. We're set to broadcast. Why am I not seeing... Okay, prepare to be deafened, guys. Well, that's not working as I expected either. We got broadcasting. We don't have antennas, or programming block, because we don't have those. Others here. Huh. See, my testing when I got out of the cockpit was I could, if the antenna was set to broadcast to me, I could actually still see the targets, and now for some reason I'm not. It doesn't do that with asteroids? Alright, anyways, let's find... Oh, jeez, yeah, there's what's left of, well, the pancake when I tried to land it. That one's another one. No, that's the one I was at. Oh, interesting. The highlight for the back door stays stuck. Here's what's left of a RAM testing pancake. That's another failed landing attempt. That one came down a little more intact. I was trying to repeat the Thug Boat's landing gear lock. There we go. That's the one I want. Teleport here. And, alright, so you might recognize this guy from the PvPvP, the team vid. That's the Blight of Kepri. That is also the seedling start of a resource ship, Stonebreaker. This is one that we've got the very lovely screenshot on, and it just looks absolutely cool when you fly down the center of that, if you get it nailed right. Unfortunately, I have not nailed it right. But you fly down the center of that with your jetpack off, and it's pretty cool. That is obviously much bigger now. That is a copy of Wasted's Whale over there, which I've been using for size comparisons. And that's just to kind of keep an eye on stuff I'm doing. This is the prototype of a sort of all-around assault vehicle that we could take down to a planet. I don't think it's going to hold up very well in a PvP fight. It's it's heavy armor around most of the core pieces, but it's also pretty easily disabled at this point. I haven't figured out the weapons loadout for it yet. And that was the initial prototype for the Battle Pancake. Doesn't look anything like that now, but that was just to see, you know, can I make a nice compact vehicle that still maneuvered around. But the fact of the matter is, I am 60 km away from there. Let me 73 away from that. Let me do a quick. Oh, interesting enough, I'm picking up the whale's antenna there. Do a quick GPS here. And then I'm going to pop back over to Direct Battle Pancake. Actually, let's just do a little bit of trash cleanup, shall we? Keep all this junk around. There we go. Teleport here. Back in space with this one. Alright, so that is the wrong side of the craft for starters. The cockpit is not located there currently. So yeah, we're 173 kilometers out, and I still haven't picked up any of the ships over there. And that big red monstrosity there has a ton of large reactors on it. Put wings on it. I did actually think about putting wings off of the back edge of it. I'm a little hesitant to, and the reasoning for that is because right now the turrets can actually, as vulnerable as these are, they can all fire around the edge of the armor work around the conveyors. So that means in any general approach, I'm going to have a pretty decent line of fire, especially like something like here, where the tops, bottoms, and sides can all fire to target this angle. Like that. That's going to be pretty good, I think. If I put wings off of it, then the back end of it is really the only place I can stick a wing off of it, and that's going to tend to limit the momentum a little bit. I could put one off the top because, again, the wings don't have to be in very specific locations, but, I don't know. Do that. I mean, I could. I mean, the biggest problem is the jump drive is literally right behind me here. There's not much shielding over it, but a wing kind of gives me a little extra shielding. Asteroid, asteroid, asteroid. Alright, let's just juice this thing. I want to see what the very first point of detection is off of all the grid's applications. So this would be the place where I just was with the GPS. Would be like stumbling across the part of the fleet almost, not the whole fleet, because obviously the Stonebreaker is not anywhere near as massive as it should be. And yes, a Big Mac in the background as well. That is actually the first Big Mac. That is not the current Big Mac. So everything just, you know, this is actually an interesting wake-up call. It's just how many asteroids. Oh. It feels like every time I go into orbit in a survival game, there are no asteroids anywhere, and I've got to drive 1,000,001 miles to actually get to one. And that's clearly not the problem. Are we going to do team training like Wasted? I think we're in relatively good shape. I mean, at least as far as something like that goes. When you look at how we reacted to the tech drop, the biggest problem that we had there wasn't any sort of team coordination. It was the fact that the grid glitched out, and I didn't know I still had admin permissions on the server that I could chop into creative mode and fix it. If I'd been able to do that, and if we'd been a little better positioned, which is impossible to know without knowing where it's going to show up in advance, then I think we would have came off pretty well, and I mean, at least as far as the great thing is it's not, we're not in that weird situation where everyone's a maverick on the team and they're all doing different things. Jam aside, of course, I should say, if he's watching, yeah, a little bit of a maverick there. But generally, every team's going to have someone who needs to, you know, goes off and does the lone wolf thing, or just airs off on some crazy idea. And the thing is, you have to harness that. On our team, you know, other than that, we're in pretty good shape. We're kind of we're discussing things beforehand in channel. We've got our own little Discord server set up that we're talking about, you know, we're talking out all of our ideas and our approaches. Before we even, you know, basically as soon as I'm out of work tomorrow, I'm going to be outlining, okay, guys, here's what I'd like to try to get done tonight, all things permitting, of course, and, you know, take into consideration suggestions from them. And we're really good about just kind of swinging at a moment's notice if we have to, and that includes, okay, having to, you know, punch together everything and just go. And again, I could jump, but, well, actually, yeah, I could jump. Let's go ahead and I'll halt here while I get this going. Distance, let's just do very short range jump. I think you just about nailed it on the head there. Hey, Josh. Nice little 50k jump. Ogre, I like your thinking. We also get that. Press your back on. That's gonna drive me nuts not having that as my... Ugh, keen. Just the one thing I would love to see them put on a toggle. Alright, there we go. And just for ease of use, let's find Mr. Jump Drive and 52-kilometer jump. Now the downside is with the power I've got on board the ship, it doesn't do a very good job of recharging this jump drive that well. There is not much I can do about that. Wow. Nothing. Just a ton of asteroids, and it's a radar at max range. Wow. Alright, let's try something here. So here are the other two, the radars that we don't have in game. And these, of course, are for the small ship. I am more interested in big ship. Stick one there. This would be extremely unlikely for me to do. Okay, so that's 2 radars, and actually now I'm finally picking up over there one of my large grids, because we're actually closer to that than anything else. We have not picked up any of the grids over there at the main jump point. Interestingly enough, it is also showing it to me as light blue, not green. It's kind of weird. Let's see. Active. Just to get that showing up in the list early on so I can adjust them together. That's probably why, because the setting for that was screwy. Nope, still. Alright, let's do this also. Let me find out if... Not that. Working grids only? Really, game, you consider an asteroid a working grid? Wow, that's special. Objects. Let's see if I see anything else. Anything? There might be debris out here, but trash cleanup might have gotten it. So nothing there. Huh. Let's just do that. That'll free up a lot of the clutter. Okay, so 2 radars is picking that up. 1 radar does not, and those are both max power at this point. Now we tend to generally be pretty on track. Every once in a while, like I said, we'll get someone who gets to be up their bonnet and wander off or do something, and you know, sometimes you just have to let that happen. I am kind of a little intrigued by this, actually. Let's turn on that radar again so I can pick up the Deceptor and find out what I actually put on that grid. receptor. Okay, that's the one I was using for... Oh, that was one of my crazy... talking about bee up your bonnet. This would be one of my crazier ideas. That was the... this was the design that had... the whole idea was these missile turrets were behind an outer shroud. And the shroud would attach, and the whole point to the outer shroud, if they're still around... This is the outer shroud here. You want to talk about decoys, this was the whole intent of this particular shroud. And it has enough, you know, kind of faked out maneuvering, but primarily on-board ions for moving, which don't work out that well in a very basic set of concealed weapons, with the idea being that you could take that out and, you know, potentially start messing around with someone. The design suffers from a couple of weaknesses, primarily the fact that it takes so long for the shroud to clear that your missiles don't really have a chance to fire, and the design itself is not very maneuverable. Plenty of... you can make it work for what it's worth, but there's a lot of interior space here that kind of feels like it's just wasted. That was me shooting up the front end of this thing. I mean, just with this thing. This is what I was attacking that with. And as far as a stationary target goes, this was beating the pants off of it. I mean, granted, it wasn't firing back. That's the problem. Really should do is set this to not be an owned grid. How many reactors do I still have on this thing, though? 2 large reactors, and that's it. Oh, yeah, because I started breaching into the engineering section on that thing. Large reactors, and you're picked up from out there. Interesting. I can't see you at all. That's not a surprise because I don't have a radar on this thing. We're over there. Point Thug is there. We're somewhere out there. Let's go ahead and just do that. Just see what I can pick up on this thing. Go back inside. Can we just put a cockpit on this stupid thing? Alright, yeah, I don't care if it's not the main cockpit. Radar. 5 targets detected. Alright, so... flip it so I can actually see friendlies, too. Okay. Oh, isn't that interesting? Okay, so... now I'm picking up the antenna on there, which makes sense. The 2 decoy pods are showing up there. That makes sense. Positioning not 100% accurate, but that's to be expected. I am picking up the battle cake from this distance with 1 radar, though. So this is 1 active radar, or no, I'm actually on passive on this thing. Yeah, I'm fully passive at this point. So 2 radars is enough to guarantee it shows up. Okay. The problem, Hunter Delta, with doing a command ship, a CNC ship, is the fact that radars aren't visible to anyone who doesn't own the block. Like, for instance, if I were to bring on my camera count here, which I can't because the computer's sitting way off to the side, and I gotta remember to set that back up tonight. Just lost my train of thought because I just realized that I had to set that thing up. Problem is the radars only show the data to the person who owns the block. I don't know why it's not showing this as a green thing to me. Maybe it's because I'm not in the faction. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Change anything? Probably not. Let's try this thing. grab every block on this, transfer owner to me, and share faction. Thinking light blue might be neutral. I don't know. Huh. So passive mode, I can pick that up. What if we turn off one reactor? And we'll go out to the battle pancake and see if I can spot it. Turning off that reactor help? No. But it's also running a passive radar now too, and I'm also running these things juiced, so let's go passive on these. Okay, then we lose it. That makes sense. Set these to the same passive power for active. For active. Could be driver, yeah. That's what I'm wondering. The if they give you a GPS for all targets, the trick there is now you've got to be within radio range to transmit those, or have the antenna set up to broadcast, and now you're broadcasting on your antenna. Which that should, I believe that increases your signature a little bit. Good. Well, actually, let's pop back over to the Deceptor here. And see if the Deceptor can still see that grid. And, decoys. Okay, so passive, we are completely invisible. Or active at low range, we're okay. Let's switch to active. Let's do the same thing to this one. Otherwise, I'm going to be scrolling through these lists forever tonight. Juice that to 5 megawatts. Did it pick it? Picked up something. Oh, it's picking up the asteroids. That's why. Hit over here. Turn those off. The other thing that's also a problem is you can't turn off the names are going to show up whether I like it or not. Let's actually just knock out GPSs here. Okay, so 1 and number 2, that doesn't make sense. What do I have those over there for? Yes. Don't show any of those GPSs. So what I'm picking up now entirely are just the signatures and the antennas. Nope, nope, nope. And GPS says I've just got the 2 large grid decoys in front of me. Alright. Don't set radar up to 10 megawatts. I still can't see it. Alright. Just kind of slide it until I hear the beep. There we go. Just heard it. Nope, that's not enough to keep it there, unless I'm picking up something else now. Oh. Character human skin face. I'm an offline. That's interesting. I don't have the other rig up either, and I don't think I have a mod for spawning anything in. Are you detecting a hostile enemy? Let's get a plane antenna on here as well. Love the plane antennas, by the way. Those are exceptionally nice blocks to have. Nice compact character human skin face. What the heck? Oh, I'm wondering if it's picking up on... Is it picking up on cryopod? Someone in a cryopod, possibly? That's what I'm wondering now. Let's do... That GPS is 5706. Nope. Doesn't look like it's actually near anything I can think of. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Let's just keep going up on... Okay, max power, I can't pick up anything. And I lose the connection as soon as I get out of the cockpit. Ow. That's really stupidly annoying. I don't know why that's not working, and it's starting to worry me a little bit. Because that was the nice thing about working outside my ship, is I had the antenna range turned up slightly, so anytime I was within range of it working on a block, I should have been getting notified about whatchamacallit. I'm the only one on the server. I mean, I'm the only entity, period. Tons of stuff floating around, but nothing named skin face. Okay. Game. Starting to freak me out a little bit with this guy being out there. Let's find the battle pancake. And let's see if we're picking up that grid on full antenna power with one reactor down. Interesting. Definitely not picking up on passive, not picking it up on active. Alright. Juice her up. Nope. What's the magic number? No, I can pick you up. Just had it, so... Okay, so there we go. That's an insanely stupid amount of power to pick up a target. And that's an active versus an active radar. Wow. Active radar, and, well, the grid's only using one large reactor too, so I have to keep that in mind as well. Let's go back over to the Deceptor. And see what happens as soon as I find the grid. Grid! Hello, grid! Hello, Siegfried. Hello, Roy! Yep, and in order to do that, I'm active to it as well. I'm seeing it. But if we start... Oh, God, yeah, that's bad. Let's do that, and then start to bring it back up again. Before I do that, let's... Like, wow, I can... This is insanely unbalanced. Okay, now admittedly I've got two active radars at full power out there that I can pick up on passive, but what happens now if I pop back over to the pancake? Does that mean that I now can't see because... No, I can see it. It can see me. Okay. Active radar is, well, yeah, that's the other thing is, I mean, active radar at this point, you can see I'm 50 minutes of battery time on this craft right now. It's insanely not likely I'm going to be working with this kind of setup. And this is just me actually playing around and seeing what it would take to actually get to see something finally. If I pop in there, I've lost it, and if I take the radar and go max power, I still can't see it. Okay. But then if I pop back over to the Deceptor, I really wish it would teleport you closer. You want to see a grader, give you the option to. And I see that. Hang on. Part of this might also be the problem. I've got mirroring on and 2 antennas running. Grid, passive only. Okay. The really funny thing is, I would almost expect the radar to make it easier to see the other stuff out there, like if you catch a return off of it or something. So we're completely passive, and we've got nothing, but that's all we can do with passive power. The skin face is back, same distance. Oh, that is going to drive me absolutely batty. Why, I don't know what the heck that is. Let's actually... Actually, I'm at Thug Space 1 here. Turn these on. Those are 20 GPS, 20 kilometers distant there, and it's not Point Thug. What the heck? Okay, tell you what. Let's just set this to passive. Keep the power down. Leave that as passive. Keeping in mind, I've got a broadcasting antenna here. I've got a broadcasting antenna there. And I don't have antennas in either of those ships. They weren't designed to be remote control capable. I was going to implement those. It's probably what I would be doing. And let's pop over to the Battle Pancake again. Maybe Hydro uses much less... Well, there is something to be said about the fact... Well, both ships are using Hydro. The other one's just got its... second large reactor turned off. I've got small reactors on this thing, so they shouldn't be causing too much power output, and the draw itself is pretty minimal. The radar is the only thing that's really drawing power off of this grid. I mean, granted, I'm also in creative mode too, so batteries are effectively infinite, which is going to change the detection signature a little bit. Let's continue on in that direction then. With the radar on active full power. So this is the stupid way to fly around space, aka the I'm going to get seen and get my ass shot off method. And the way we're doing it right now, Hunter Delta, is we're running the radars off of the SIO and the Bly and this ship only. I'm in Atmo there. It's just correct for that. Because I really don't want to be in Atmo. This ship does not do Atmo. Case in point, come on, baby, up. Okay, we're out of pain in the butt atmosphere. Probably was only just really skimming the top layer, but this thing can get down to, like I said, about 50,000 meters, and at that point, forget it. It's game over. Physics says nope. trajectory a little bit. Still not seeing anything, mind you. And I know that the ship is somewhere over there. So at least as far as like a light scout craft out there, I don't know. Right now, Hunter, it's one per. I think we're probably, there's talk, I believe, about increasing it to 2, so that way the pilot and the gunner on the Blight could have access to radar. The thing is, I'm kind of curious how, and this is the one problem that really needs to be tested out on a full multiplayer server, you know, an actual dedicated server, is whether those two radars will cooperate with each other, or if when you own the radar yourself and you're getting the information from the radar, if that radar settings are only going to apply to itself and not like share, basically. So if I have two radars and one's owned by someone else friendly and one's owned by me, do I only basically get the benefits of the one radar, or do I get the benefits of having both radars combined? That I'm not sure about. Have I heard about the new DLC for BattleTech? Yes, I have, Driver. It's definitely shaping up to be pretty interesting, and also some of the other stuff that the other changes that they've made to the game lately. I am definitely looking forward to seeing that DLC when it comes out, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I'm kind of holding off on getting back into it at the moment, because I really would kind of just rather wait until we actually get the DLC and kind of approach the game fresh at that point. Some of the stuff is also they will only cooperate when you own both radars. You see, there's the problem then. So we're looking at having to have one person dedicated on any given grid who has to own that radar, and they're the only ones who are going to be able to spot anything coming in. Which basically means at this point I have to ask someone on the team to stay in the cockpit at all times. Because now I can't depend on targets showing up on radar, with the antenna either. Which I swear was working fine when I tested it on multiplayer, because I remember popping out of the seat on the SIO, and all the local grids were still showing up when I popped out of the seat with the antenna on minimum range. So maybe it's just something with single player where the radar doesn't quite work that way, or whatnot, or maybe it's because I have to have the because we don't have to have programming blocks enabled, because otherwise we need that on the server too. I mean, this isn't an exact, like for like setup with the server either. I'm on a single player world, decidedly offline, and yeah, so yeah, I'd have to ask someone to sit in, stay in the cockpit at all times, which there's two problems I have with that. One, it means we are, to see, not in gravity, but another problem with this design is I don't, actually no, that's right, I have some missile turret. Stupid idiot. What you got it there for, right? All blocks. Grab. And I want to control. So target off to port. I wasn't sure if I was seeing the grid or not, but no, it looks like that's just a very low LOD asteroid. Actually, that's back where I came from. What am I saying? Make sure that's not my monitor. Pretty sure that's not my monitor that I'm seeing the stupid speck on that makes me think it's a ship. Yeah, definitely not. Out in that direction, off to port. Okay, yeah, another stupid low LOD asteroid. Ugh. Next time, I need to turn off the asteroids. It'll be an issue with all teams keeping one person in the cockpit, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind that's one person who's not able to assist doing anything else. Because with it only being an option for a large grid, the only utility grid that we have that could mount a radar would be the Big Mac. And what I'd be worried about there is, yeah, we can put a radar on it, but if we put too much power draw on it, then it's going to have problems potentially. I don't know, because it is a hybrid setup. It should be okay, and worst case scenario, you turn off the radar to get out of gravity well. No, I'm still not picking up. Hang on, there we go. There's that skin face character human. What the heck is that? Alright. So that disappears if I do that. Let's get the spectator camera out. Let's see what's up finally. Let's go ahead and find out what's out here. Because there's got to be something out here. Don't ask me what the heck this is, but it would be like the Black Obelisk in Kerbal Space Program or something. There is... Well, let me slow down. Oh. There's nothing anywhere around here. No grids. It's a part of the map I have not been on, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've been nearby, but... Ian, explain yourself? What the heck is this? Okay, guys, if anyone knows what the heck is up with this guy here, I'm game to hear it, because this is not me. It's not anyone... I mean, we did switch our suits over to white, but we did that at a point before or after I took the blueprints of the various ships. So it's not someone who's in a cryopod. I don't know what this is. I'm stumped. All right. Okay. Strange things. So, interesting. Well, there's an interesting thing to note. A radar, apparently, in this world currently, at max range, is able to pick up a human suit, assuming that is a human suit, at 50 kilometers at max power. So, even outside of a ship, that's not encouraging. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, you would think if that is really a character, I should see it on the list here. But I don't. It's just me. Okay. Alright, so theoretically, if this holds out, then when I close on 50 kilometers, I should be able to see what's going on here. And now what the heck? Now it's gone. I'm still somewhat heading towards it. Why? I figured it out. I figured it out. I know what that is. Keen is going to be dropping a new feature into the game, announcing a special tie-in with the makers of Where's Waldo? I found Waldo. How many versions of SC did this world go through? This was created after the PvP match started. Or sorry, I should say PvPvP match started. So, relatively recent. You know, basically 2 minor drops ago. Or minor versions. 58 kilometers, coming up on snooze time here. It's a broken thing from when they set the star system world? Could be, yeah. Anonymous tracking is indeed on for me right now. That is an interesting thing to point out. Let's actually, because the spectator camera is still out there, which is how I'm able to prove he's still out there. It would seem a little scary that this is their way of collecting data by having someone present in the world, but you know, there's one easy way that I can turn this off. Nope, still there. Oh my god. I feel like I've got to build a cage around this guy or something. So, yeah. Don't know, but I mean, it's off now, that particular setting, so honestly, I have no problem with sending them anonymous activity tracking, even though I'm sure that they have ways to determine who it is, especially if they're doing something like that, connecting to a world or establishing a pipeline from the world to show you who's where. Okay, now here's something funny. I get sucked into the planetary gravity, and it doesn't tell me there's a planet down there. Now I'm nowhere near the gravity, but hey, I know there's a planet down there. This is so screwed up. This is beyond screwed up. I don't have to worry about Point Thug. That's definitely down on the planet. I don't want to restart this world because it's a pain to get everything back in. But more accurately, it's... Well, actually, it's less of a pain to do it on this world because I only have a very small handful of mods. He's also invulnerable. Yeah, that's true. Well, he has to be in... Well, he is invulnerable because he's got the disconnect icon over him, so technically you can't... Between that and it's a creative world, too, so... Combine all that together. Alright, coming up on 50 out. Speed it up a little bit. Get a better idea for how well she's going to decelerate. Especially if I do something I'll guarantee all my thrusters are going to be in a firing position for the most part. Okay, braking. Alright, so I'm 50 kilometers out from that location, and no, there is... Let's just teleport to here. Oh, because I'm in a cockpit. Oh, let's just scurry that noise. That's what I want to do. Alright. So meanwhile, back over here, you can see that I've got some debris off in that location too that I was testing with. So this will actually work out pretty nice. This is a very old copy of the Blight, back before major internal retrofit and external retrofit. So I'm not worried too much about showing this one on camera at least. But this means that she doesn't have radar on her currently. I can fix that very quickly. Oop. Oh no, that's a cockpit. We don't want the cockpit. Radar. Alright. Radar love. Come on. On passive. Do not show hostiles. Okay, so I'm picking up a bunch of stuff over there, which is to be expected. Let's go. Wow. You would think that ampersand 1 would sort out. No. a radar dome. Asteroids off. Okay, so I am picking up. I know I'm heading to the right GPS point 2 because that's Feral 2. Let's turn off Feral 1. So that's picking up the Pancake I got parked there, the Big Mac, picking up the Stonebreaker. Interestingly enough, note the Stonebreaker is... I wish I could get out and actually show this to you guys. I don't know if I can... Okay, good, I can use spectator camera for this. Note that as far as positioning goes, Pancake, given it's pretty close to the Blight already anyways, more or less right where it expects to be. The Spiky Ball, which is this thing here, positioning's way off on that one. Come over here to the Stonebreaker, that tiny little module, a good ways off, and the Big Mac is also a good ways off. And I don't believe, yeah, all this is built off the Whale. The Whale itself is, yeah, you can see it's nailed that one spot on where that's located. And that's not, by the way, an intact version of the Whale. That is a damaged version. I just happened to grab one day during the workshop. So good news is something that's ridiculously oversized, aka a Whale. Let's see how many reactors we've got on that sucker, which I imagine is quite a few at this point, including, as you can see, some damaged ones in here. We have 4. No, you're kidding. This thing running off of battery power only? Holy crap! Did I cord? This thing's only... Wow. That's kind of scary. Alright, just for sanity's sake. So that was running off batteries, which is supposed to make you far more stealthier. That's something else that I technically should test. Hitting solar panels to the outside of this thing is going to be tough. GPS are off because of the density of the craft. Well, that's the funny thing is this grid over here, which I'm out of the cockpit, I can't see GPS, but hop back in, go to spectator. Here's the funny thing, this one's not even showing up. As far as the game is concerned, radar knows that the Spiky Ball is there. It's got the Battle Pancake there. It's got the 2 smaller of the large grids there. It's nailed the position of that. Oh. I bet that's what it is. That is... Is that the penetrator? Did I include... Have... on this. Did I name this thing the penetrator? I don't even remember how to get into this thing at this point. I don't know why this has not been built in survival. This would be why. This thing is massively resource intensive if we were to build it. Yes, that's batteries lining the entire crew compartment front to back here. Then we got the cargo containers with reactors acting as shielding for them. Heavy armor all in the interior core of this thing. Batteries up at the front acting as another firewall, because it's heavy armor behind all that too. Multiple redundant connector paths, multiple redundant propulsion systems. The large reactors up front, you know, we got small reactors over here for emergency power. This thing is ungodly ridiculous to build in survival, and then just a whole back end of this thing. It's not even secure either, because obviously you can just, oh hey, someone's over here, let's see if we can get in their ship. Oh yeah, I just made it into your ship, and ha ha ha, now in your ship grinding your base. Where's the penetrator? Let's take a look here. Yeah, that is the penetrator. Okay, so the positioning on that was really screwy. I could understand the small grids being off because they're smaller, they're less powerful, but as far as that's concerned, the penetrator is right here. So how do you explain that one, guys? That doesn't look like the density of the craft, because that's an extremely dense craft. That's a very dense craft. That's not a very dense craft. That's not a very dense craft, but it's still off. And those are light craft, and yet... Huh. Well, I'm not too worried at this point, because honestly, if I'm this close to a giant battle fleet, then chances are, yeah, I'm probably in trouble. I should also do is make sure I bookmark that, because I am thinking about doing something stupid. Or blueprint it. Let's go in here. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is keep these guys out of entire... Ugh. I'm trying to figure out how I can actually get these guys to fire at me, even though they're not my grids anymore. Well, they are my grids, but... let's go in... back in. Because if I set them to fire at neutrals, they're going to start shooting at everything. So, share... Okay, transfer to... I can't do nobody. So that's the problem. There's no very easy way to do full-on scale testing when you've got a whole fleet of ships that you need to cut ownership over on. Now, the other thing I should also note is... I wasn't seeing those grids off in that direction. They're not that far out either. So that was all passive detection, that one. Let's go active. And everything is still just as wonky for positioning. Is that not sorting properly? 5 megawatts. Nothing new, no refinement. However, it has picked up my antenna. Oh no, that's me because I'm now within broadcasting range, isn't it? I do off. Yeah, okay, that's okay. That will give me double check on this when I actually do see it. Only is off. Bump up to no further confirmation. Okay. Of course, that said, it's also it might not actually give me a blip for that because it's a friendly antenna within range, and the mod does use antennas as part of its detection setup. Let's do... Or I can go until I pick up something. That's max power for that radar. And yeah, as far as the blight goes, we've got the 2 large reactors, a small reactor backup, and let's see if we managed to refit somewhere or not on. Keeping in mind, this, like I said, this is an old version of this design. This is not its current incarnation by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still not picking up that debris over there. I mean, this is how wonky this is. Let me find Gatling cannon here. Hopefully I can find one I can actually see it. Shit, there it is. I can see those wrecks over there from this, and those are indeed wrecks over there. Those have been shot at. And that one's definitely still active. We still have the Stonebreaker active on that grid. jump drive was just shot off on it. That one, I believe, was the Big Mac just lost the cargo container. I think that one actually is legit dead in the water, but why do I not see those? Alright, let's try. Hey, did you just give me... Alright, no, that's the other that and the scripture transformations and whatnot. That would be if I were actually trying to use this to do something that the game is actually not capable of doing on its own. Let's see what we got. Okay, so our skin face dude is still out there. I'm wondering if that's kind of a construct behind the scenes to handle rendering skins when you get in and out of something that potentially changes the skin or something. I don't know. We're still heading towards the right point, and radar is... So I've got active on both ends, power max, and I'm not seeing anything at 50 kilometers out, but I can see a person and I can see the planet. Gee guys, I didn't know the planet was there. Alright, let's see what happens as we go in. Because the other thing is also I should... Oh no, because the light's antenna's turned down to minimum. That was primarily in there to troubleshoot finding blocks during remodels. Let's just close in. Oh, I turned the radar off on that guy? Okay, that would explain it. I can fix. Let's pop over, teleport. Please stop moving me just because I got out of a cockpit and then teleported. Well, I guess it's kind of like a portal in a ways. Maintaining your angular momentum as you go through. Portal. On. There we go. Now I'm picking up all the crap that's out there. Alright, let's try that one again. Pop back down to 800. Okay. Two reactors, 2 small reactors, 3 small reactors. It's a lot of power this is requiring to pick up something. It's within antenna range. That's also broadcasting its head off out there, I should also mention. What'd you pick up? You picked up the debris stonebreaker out there. So not even the grid that's, you know, the thug that's out there, the battle pancake that's out there is not being picked up because that's the one right next to me. The antenna, my antenna is the one that's out there. That only just got 1 kilometer out for a mostly dead grid. I'm really seeing that, yeah, you have to have multiple radars to pull this off. That should be, yep, Big Mac that's out there. Slightly closer away, but off. Yeah, it's only the player, not the blocks, true. Alright, let's see how much I have to... Anything? Oh, nothing. Okay, let's... Oh, I'm so glad I'm doing this in creative mode, because otherwise this would be a pain. Running these ships dry, basically. Alright, so max range radar on this side. Double check that. Max range and on. So at this point, we've got two active radars banging away at each other, and I can't see it. Wow. That's scary. Alright. Well, I'm at a good distance here, so let's try something here. Let's take our active radar and drop it back to passive. And we're gonna take 2 more and stick those on. So basically mirror mode effectively. And fix these guys up so they'll show a little better. I'm really not feeling all that confident about the radar here right now, guys. I gotta say. Funny thing is that slider still has a value even though it's not actually set. So 3 passive radars, and I'm not picking up anything against something that is screaming that it is out. Oh, I know what it is. Remember, every new radar I place, I need to turn off asteroids, show my hostiles off. Oh, okay, so they're all owned by me. The thing I really love is it's also making the noise like it's having to unload all of the contact points when it shouldn't be. Asteroids are off. Huh. Yeah, it's still making a boatload of noise for that. Radars do we have to do this? It's 5 now. Let's type properly on that spot of the keyboard instead of random keys over, huh? Let's take a second out the side of the Bly. I mean, that is actually a good point. We never really established necessarily whether it matters having hostile asteroids. Whether or not it matters that they're outside the ship or not. Because they do mention ray casting in the description for the mod, but I mean, clearly I'm not getting anything here. It's showing nothing as far as that's concerned. So that's 5 radar domes at 800 kilowatts of power, so I'm burning 4 megawatts right now, give or take. Which, I mean, in the realm of things, isn't bad. I mean, we're talking about basically a quarter of a battery can be slaved away to running the radars. I mean, it still sucks because it's 4 hours of battery life, but I think I'm pretty sure I can get to a safe location and charge it up in 4 hours. Well, that's just it, driver. I don't want to add anything more on the other grids at this point. I just want to see what I'm trying to actually do here is see what it's taking for someone to find us right now. Because there's a whole bunch of ships at that spot there. There's some big ones, there's some small ones, there's lots of reactors running. I want to kind of see what it's going to take to actually spot. Because all I keep hearing is, oh, well, this team is out looking for people, or that team is out looking for people, and radar is going to make this so much easier. And I'm kind of really questioning how easy that's going to make it. And this factors into one of the decisions that I have to make next week, which is, do we move? And that's something I have to decide. I've had to decide every week for the last 3 weeks is, do we move where we're at? On one hand, if the teams are out there looking for us, moving around either means we could walk into an ambush that we aren't expecting, or walk into the group that we're not expecting if we jump to another asteroid, or we're setting ourselves up so that we're getting out of harm's way just in time, but also means we've got to basically stop gathering resources because we've got to, very quickly dock everything up to larger ships. It's one of the reasons why we went ahead and got rid of the hangar on the Bly, because yeah, it was great that we could put all the ships in a nice, all the small ships in a nice little protected space, but getting them in and out was taking so much time that it made more sense at that point to say, no, everyone just clamp onto the hull, and that's how you ride out. Radars are line of sight. It says so in the mod description, but I can confirm in our testing on the stream we were getting hit results off of friendly craft with antennas of hits not in antenna range from friendly craft with the radar inside the ship. And to prove that, what I can do is I can turn this first radar off. Because that, and you'll also remember, we've also detected the enemy player with the radar inside the ship. We detected the penetrator, or not the penetrator, the white ship out there with the radar in the ship. So I suspect what we're really talking about when he's talking about needing line of sight because of ray tracing, I think that's talking about the more advanced features that you can access in the programming blocks, like various different detection modes. We don't have that because we can't use the programming blocks. We don't have any that we can use. So I can't do a magatomic scan. I can't do the, you know, all the various different scan modes that would help increase the accuracy. But this is 4 radars on full passive right now, and there's a radar out there blasting away merrily that should really be able to pick something up. Let's take him active. And let's see, now at this point I'm eating up 4 large grid small reactors to power the radars. Just this setting. You can see at this point I've got 18 minutes of fuel on, well, 18 minutes of battery power that can handle this. And that's just with the 4. This one is still off. So okay, that started picking up stuff there. Let's turn off the GPS for that. Should still be straight ahead that I'm going to detect these targets when I turn them up. Okay, that's the first target there. And that's picking up the Deceptor out there. Line of sight is determined by the grid, not the radar block. So then, right, then that's why they're saying you can't detect them around the moon, and that's more realistic. So that's the problem when they say ray tracing in Space Engineers is usually something you're saying it's being done from a camera to a target. When I've played around with that in with some basic scripting in trying to find a way to kind of auto combat Lucas's ships, it's very specific to that camera. I haven't actually played around with knowing or even have the knowledge of how to do it out of like the grid itself. All the scripting I've worked with is just off the camera. So the good news is it picked up our light cruiser finally. That's giving me a ping at 37.65 kilometers out. I suspect if I turn this up a little more, I should be picking up. Yep, there's the penetrator is the grid picked up, which makes sense. That's the largest grid with the most reactors on board at that location. But the power setting to pick that up, 16 times 4. It's 64 megawatts of power going into that. That is... That's 15, so that plus a little bit of that reactor there. I have 1 reactor to fly this ship on right now. And you can see that as I... because the O2 generators on board to power this, yeah. That is... It's not very reassuring, to be honest with you guys. Let's try... Yep, and that 1 dropping off did it. So if I add another... There's the first grid. Second grid. Okay, so it is cumulative at that point. So off 3 grids, I can detect it with the... Oh, hang on. No, wait a minute. 16. Okay, yeah, spread across those grids. That makes sense. All right, if we turn that one off, so now I've got 2. That one, so I need to go a little further out. There we go. Wow, that is a lot of power. Yeah, I'm definitely coming to that conclusion, Hunter. I mean, really, and the problem is here's the worst part of this problem. In order to do this much power, put this much power into this kind of detection range for a truly massive object, it's going to require a large, I want to say large fusion reactor for that. Let's double check what I'm thinking here for numbers. And you should have, yeah, 300 megawatts. Which makes it a bit more reasonable, or the alternative is let's see, so that's 3,000 3 megawatts, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9. Or to run that. You're 34 megawatts each. Actually, I can get that because that's 9 right there. So running the reactors for this, that's 18. That is about that many small reactors. Let me make sure Mr. Farrell needs to do the math on this properly and make sure he's actually calculating these numbers correctly off the top of his head. Yeah, he's not. 15 megawatts per reactor. Okay, so that's ridiculously over the top. We don't need that many reactors. We need far fewer than that. 15, 30, and a little extra on one. So that right there, I can do that on this ship, but it is a lot of power being kept away from other systems. That's kind of interesting. Hell has no fear. That's kind of what I think we're going to wind up doing, because one of the things that we've hit upon is we have a ship that's going to have a phenomenal jump range on it, and the idea is we dock up as much as we can to that ship, and if we find a target, that ship makes the jump out, like if there's another tech drop. And then the idea is all the ships undock at that point and proceed on a second jump if they have to, or merge up and try to make another jump. The problem is you can't really do that with connectors, because we found that as much as they've done for multiplayer at this point, it's just too unstable still to try to dock up multiple ships through small grids. We've got one ship that has just been yo-yoing all over the place every time you try to dock anything up to it more than one ship in depth. So here's the problem. Let's try this. Over here. That would be what we would be looking at for a very basic picket. Then we stick an antenna on it. Give it... It's going to take a ton of power too. But within the realm of what that can provide. And we do... Let's just turn receiver off on that right now, actually. So from there, will this work? Way to find that out. Off. I don't know, this could be glitched out on single player more than anything right now, I'm wondering. Just to rule out that mode. Plane antenna on this has been turned up. Yep, and yep, set up normally. You would assume at this point that the... Oh, that's right, we don't need one over there. What am I saying? Give me another radar, please. Set that one up. These also need to be active. Active. Max range. Okay, so you're letting me pick far more power than is available on that platform. Because I've got 30, 45. Alright, oh. There. Now you should have enough power. So you got 18 targets detected. I don't see any targets. Let's just try for SNG because I've got to have a line of sight anything. Might as well have real line of sight set up. Let's see if the laser antenna does any better. Don't mess around with the laser antennas all that much. So this is something I am not 100% sure on. But these guys are now connected up through a laser antenna link. It should mean that I can go in and turn off my antenna here. Turn off the plane antenna on that. Save some power. Following, so that's good. But, HUD switch normal, HUD fully visible, nothing on radar. And to prove that this is working on this craft, oh, this is glitched out. Look at the power the power requirements for this. Game don't knock that. Nope. That was lovely and loud. How much power is that thing drawing? 120, yeah, that... Oh, right, 50,000 each. You have to drop it down to 5,000 to stay within our energy budget here, roughly. That could be why I couldn't actually see anything through it, so... And we just need to clean up that plot a little bit. I suspect this is not going to work. Yep. Let's try dragging one of the antennas, or one of the radars. Okay, that did pick it up. Let's drop. We'll have to pick up that guy. Okay, so Set both of these to 40. Power. Power. And I can't do these off batteries because it would just drain the battery flat, essentially. Okay, that's barely enough for the craft just on its own. And it would tear through uranium like crazy. Can I drop the power requirements in? Okay, that's a bit better. Nope, that lost everything at that distance. So I want an early warning system setup of pickets. Oh boy. And that's only picking up one grid out of that entire combat group over there. And not the other one that's sitting out there that this thing can still pick up. And to boot, it's not relaying anything to me through the antennas. So, as far as lessons learned off of the radar, at the very least on single player, a picket system's not going to work. We're not going to be able to, say, set up on various asteroids an early warning system like this, because that is certainly one thought that we've had, which would be to just have a basic radar sitting out on an asteroid somewhere, and more or less just laser antenna or broadcast antenna back to the primary command and control ship, and that would be the tripwire system, basically. That one's not gonna work. Okay, hang on a sec. Let me catch up on chat here, guys, because I kind of went way overboard on testing it and haven't been paying attention to it, and I apologize for that. The other thing also with the whole idea of multiple ships is you wind up having to design weaknesses into them. Because what the weakness becomes the point where it attaches to another ship. So if you're using a merge block, you've got to have a merge block connection sticking out to be able to safely dock, because if the merge blocks are... you have to have at least a block separation distance between one of the grids and your grid. The connectors are more or less the same thing, except those are even jankier as all heck to try to maneuver. And with landing gear, you can do it, but I swear they're wonky when you jump. I'm really kind of convinced that, especially... going all the way back to Uncooperative Survival, and you guys might remember there was an episode where we jumped the Good Intentions, and I had my ship, I had the Thug at the time, landing gear locked to the back end of it at an angle, and it's almost the exact same angle that I had on the SIO when that grid glitched out. And I had similar issues with grids after that particular jump, to the point where I couldn't control the ship at all. Wasted could pop it and move it just fine, but everything was all glitched out then. Granted, that was a couple versions of SE ago at this point now, but yeah, it's a little wonky to do that. The other thing is also then everything winds up using the same jump power, and that's pointed out. That was pointed out there. If you're connected up through merge blocks or connectors, I don't know. Merge blocks would definitely use the same jump drive. Connectors, I don't believe, do that. Landing gear definitely do not. Yep, so that you guys confirmed that. Okay, I am caught back up here. So yeah, antennas and radars don't work together. Okay, so this is Drek. Means the only way you're gonna be able to pull this off. It's great to see that the game's actually got a mod capable, you know, a radar mod that's actually, for all intents and purposes, working pretty well. But yikes, that power drain. And just to confirm, the whole can't really detect it. Max range there, picking that up. Not picking up the others. Let's turn that one off. Turn these off. Turn you on, active. Same results. So a radar that is outside the ship and most definitely has line of sight at least to the target up there can't see it at the same range as the one inside the ship. So that should hopefully help settle that discussion. That is really effing annoying though. So how close am I going to have to get for the passives to be any good? Because here's the way I'm thinking about it is every ship has a passive radar because the juice requirement for that's not quite so bad. And then that way, at least we all have some basic detection functionality. But if this is really the case, then here's the other thing I've got to keep in mind is, come on, baby, stop. There we go. Realized that was taking up power, and I also want to see what this looks like with the antennas off across the board now. Let's take a look at... Let's jump back over here, see if I can see anything. Scepter, what do you got for me? Grids, complaints about the target, or the cockpit, and we're in passive on this one. Let's go active. Max range. Picks up all of that, but not anything else. Okay. Okay, so this is playing the part of a stalking warship out here, actually. Let's even go to the point. I'll give them a second radar, because you definitely have the power for it. Showing hostiles off. Asteroids off. Okay, that is a doubled up radar. Radar dome. It's power. Active. Ooh, there's a lot of asteroids out there. Okay. Yep. So at this range, 2 radars, still not enough to take that on. Let's also make sure I'm thinking about it. Both of those are good, and all the batteries are intact. So we have the power to run that indefinitely at this point. So that's our stalking ship out there, such as it is. Let's pop back over to the battle pancake here. The lovely crotch shot from space engineers. Thank you. Okay, so at that point, that stalking tiger, I can see it now. And that is, amusingly, with... What mode am I in here? On... Completely passive. How many passives do I need to see that? Actually, let's do it this way. Block just to make this a little easier. And a nice visual representation of what I'm doing, too. Okay. Still see it. Still see it. Still see it. Still see it. Don't see it. Radar is completely off at that point. So... Here's what I'm kind of seeing this as, guys. And hey, Duncan. really the best early warning system you've got is a passive radar on your craft. Because that's 2 radars out there that are actively looking for me that haven't found me. But I can see it. And yet, well, yeah, passive only will detect active radar. So that's the best early warning system I have for that, is just using the passives as they're intended. It's just the question of what you do with an active. Here's what I'm thinking is, which one is that one? That's number 2. What we're gonna do is set this one up as an active, and we'll give this enough. You can draw off the power of 1 reactor. So if I turn on 4, turn that one off, I can still see it. And interestingly enough, you'll note that when I switch between active and passive, it is killing off everything out there. If I turn that one on and turn that one off, it blips for a second, which is kind of interesting. And what we do is number 3. Same deal. Now this is not exactly ideal because of the amount of resources that are going into this, but as far as controlling it from the cockpit, I'm still not picking it up with that. So find, I got 4, so I need 4 and 5 there. Let's just stage these guys in advance. Got, you're unactive and you're both unactive. Okay. Pop 6. Pop 7, and I'm still not seeing anything ahead there. So, as far as that goes, it may not even need that much power to do that. And that's just it, Hunter Delta. We're kind of, we're trying not to attract too much attention where we're at when you think about it. So, as far as early defense, it's better than nothing. And having a second radar that you can very easily flip over, or actually, here's the other question. Does the menu allow us to... See, you can't change the mode from the G menu. You can only just turn it on and off. So really, you have a passive radar and you have an active radar. And you just preset the power setting on the active to draw whatever power you know you've got. But the question is, now that I've gone active with this grid, what does Mr. Decepticon here see? Oh, come on. Shoot back over. Mr. Decepticon, even with me running an active radar that I can see it, has not spotted the pancake. And he's running full power on that thing. Hostiles are off. Asteroids are off. Huh. All I can see is a stupid human out there. Interesting. Active radar buoy to lure them in and pounce on them with your ships. It's stuff like laying traps in Space Engineers. I'm very hesitant of it because and this isn't even so much Space Engineers that I'm talking about. Actually, what's the word I'm looking for? My preference for not using traps actually comes from UHCs in Minecraft. And if you ever have followed a YouTuber by the name of Packrat, you'll know that he, when he's been in UHCs, likes to frequently try to trap people. So he'll set up a little thing with like a TNT under a stone pressure plate and, you know, lava traps and everything and deadfalls, and they never work. Because the problem with the trap is you have to ensure that the enemy is going to show up there. Otherwise, I mean, especially in this case with the amount, the part cost on these antennas, these are not cheap to make. They look pretty, though, by the way. That's 1,000 computers going into that one antenna. 160 detector components, 80 radio communication components. Those are not cheap blocks. So I'm really kind of, and also I will point out this as I did in the PvPvP stream. See, Keen, this is how you handle reflections properly in the game, instead of a time-delayed piece of crap-looking thing in the glass that there's currently. You see how this is adjusting real-time? That my light source from the engineer turns off and fades properly, and when I move, it's real-time. It doesn't ghost or slowly stutter across the surface there. That's how you do a reflection, Keen. Sorry, had to troll him a little bit. They're not cheap blocks, so when you lay a trap, you're now actually, if anything, you're making yourself a victim, because now you are in position, you have to stay there to ambush the person when they spring the trap. Which, unless you're running silent running, and by that basically I mean everything is off, you're working entirely off of solar and batteries, you're gonna be waiting quite a while. Because the other thing about the traps is most people are intelligent. They're going to, it's kind of like our reaction when Wasted dropped the uranium GPS back in like the first or second episode, and we were like, oh, do we really trust that? Is it a trap? And that's why we approached it very cautiously. We could have gone all in and assaulted that location. And had we done that, chances are we probably would have done some damage, and at the same time we would have lost out on a lot of opportunity to do resource gathering. And it could have also just as easily been a trap. I mean, when you look at the GPS coordinates, that's why when we had the blue team posting GPS coordinates a little while ago in the game, I went out solo to check them. I didn't bring anyone with me, because they could have easily, if it had been a trap, I wouldn't have lost anything. So really, the whole idea with the suspect GPS is, or, you know, like trying to lay a trap, is people aren't going to blindly wander into it. They're going to jump near it. They're going to see what they can see, and if they don't see a big fleet there hanging out and no one aware that they're doing it, then they're not going to jump in. Either way, that's kind of scary that it takes that much. One active, and the active over here picks it up no problem, but without being seen in return, and at a much lower setting on this side. I'm liking this. This I can live with. So basically a 2 radar setup. So what I would probably wind up doing, let's just kind of figure out where I'd stage this on the ship too. So this will put me back on the passive only. Those blocks are gone. Do I have a spot I can tuck another radar? Question of the day. Answer coming up at noon on Action News. No, just kidding. See, the problem is there's not that many places to put one. And what I'm kind of thinking is I'm not really worried about losing. If I happen to get into a ram, which this ship actually does a decent job at ramming, surprisingly. I'm afraid of having the radar bop loose or... No, not a cockpit there. You can menu off the reactor. That's probably a little better. A little less likely to do damage there. There we go. Not the best of shielded locations, but really, there's not much. This thing is incredibly tight for dimensions on the inside. Okay, so... Oh, actually, that's the back end anyways. Never mind. I seriously, even though I have built this thing and I've got 2 extra guns up front to tell me which way is forward, I still can't tell where the heck this thing starts and ends. It drives me absolutely batty when I'm flying up to them. Which where's the cockpits on this thing now? Oh, they're over here, they're over there. Let's set up, so this is going to be active radar. Let's make this a little easier to find. Radar active. To be that setting. Show only hostiles, please. No asteroids. Or show only hostiles off. This one is going to become passive. Do is find our radar block for active. Toggle block on and off, and off. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about the sound desync, guys. I've been trying to figure out what's going on with that, and I have no idea. It shows up in the recording, and everything's perfectly fine on my end, but I've even stopped and started the stream on some occasions in PvP matches, and it's still off. And it only seems to kick in after about an hour or two have gone by, and then it just sits there. And the funny thing is if I go back to the recording, it's my voice that's actually off, and not the in-game sounds in the video. Those two are in perfect sync. But the stream and what you guys see is the opposite. The in-game sound is off sync, but the game and my voice are. It's kind of really bizarre. Yeah, if anyone's got any ideas on what the heck is causing that, let me know, because it has been driving me batty in editing. One reason why there haven't been that many videos out lately. Okay, so we got an approach here at the very least of how to handle that. Let's kind of take our passive ship now further in towards where the enemy fleet should be. Just to confirm I'm still burning for the right point. Okay, not quite. Corrective burn, so I'm picking that up. Let's turn off the GPS for that now. I would expect to be picking something up on radar, you know, because there have those ships out there, right? As in with the radar on. They stopped doing that game. It should be a case of personal preference or a key combo when you get out of the cockpit with whatchamacallit on, whether you want your damps on or off by default. Are in active mode, full power, but inside the ship. Let's try something. It's be a pretty good line of sight. Active. Asteroids off. Hostiles off. Because that's what makes it even more annoying if that really... It shouldn't. It's working fine on my ship. That's all the debris over there. And I know I'm definitely approaching from... I can't look there properly because it'll script the camera, but from somewhere in that direction is the vector I'm approaching from. Okay, so one fully powered... Because I know we've got 2 large reactors on that thing, so 600 megawatts should be more than enough to power that properly. Let's give this the best chance of working, though, and put a radar on you. We'll say you're our second picket ship on active, full power. Then let's just simulate this on these guys. So you are going to be passive. And same deal here. passive. Big Mac would probably, if it's going to have a radar, be passive as well. Finding a mounting point is going to be difficult. If there's any ship that's more compact, it's this thing. Good God, this ship is... It's a great ship, but it's also a pain to weld up to. Because, I mean, there's no block that's not in some way doing something inside the ship, whether it's a conveyor block, a thruster, a hydrogen generator, spotlights, cargo, jump drive. You name it, it's in that ship. And where's Stonebound? Stonebound, or Stonebreaker, would be the only other platform that I would consider to be active. Just based off of the current role that it's in right now. But it's going to need a very... It's definitely going to need a boost to its reactors for this. Because I don't think this one's got enough for that. Just trying to find an access port on this thing is also... And how many... No, we got enough, because that's 15 right there. So, yeah, she's got enough to handle even the basic mode. Okay, so that's kind of our best case scenario right now, if I were to set up our fleet at the moment. So active on the Kepri. This thing, it's a super SIO in a ways. Passive, active, and we'll worry about testing something off the whale in a little bit. Let's see what we got over here. And take me back over to the Battle Pancake. So, that should give me the best chances of picking up something. That's a whole metric F-ton of active setups out there, and I'm not seeing them. No, I'm heading towards the right GPS too. Because that's the GPS that everything is at over there. Alright, well, let's just see how long it takes to actually pick something up. Still can't believe that. That's... passive only, you'd think I'd be picking up something. That, we'll see how long I hang on to the Deceptor there on passives as well. I imagine once I hit 50 kilometers, it's going to phase out. Which then doesn't make any sense why I'm not seeing anything here, though. Well within 50 on this, and there's multiple active sets at full power over there. Stonebreaker Mark 1 before the doubling, and the doubling, and the doubling, and the doubling, and the doubling, you mean? That thing is an absolute monster. And the scary thing, a thing which I think has probably woken up a couple team members as to what we're facing with Green Team at this point, is Green Team has been confirmed by Mr. Wasted in chat that they have at least one mining rig that has 400 drills on it. So basically, if you think about that, that's a 20 by 20 drill head, basically. Compared to what we saw back when we found them on the moon and they ran off before we could get a good visual on them, based off the drill pattern that they had there, my estimate, I believe, was 8 large drill heads, depending on how much distance they put between them. It's not very efficient to run them, you know, side by side by side, too, so that 20 by 20 grid could actually, in reality, be much larger. Okay, let's actually kick up the speed here. Well, and that's what's scary, Cliff, is, you know, you say we need to add more storage. Aha, there we go. Just picked it up at 30 kilometers out, and I still have the Deceptor at 44. You see, once you get to full speed, this thing does not slow down that fast either. Okay, so that's on the passives. 33 kilometers out. And most of these asteroids that we're detecting, let's actually try this here. If I go back to my passive, and this should not actually pick up anything, by the way. Yep, okay. So, yep, that lost everything, and yep, that confirms that the distance to that GPS is about right. So, here's the problem. In order to detect... Let's actually try this. Let's shoot you down to the lowest range. Okay, an active radar at the lowest possible setting will still pick these guys up. Let's see how long I hang on to it for. Go a little slower as I back out here. Yeah, the funny thing about the Stonebreaker is now we need something to haul it around, but it also, you have to wake up when you start seeing something like that, or people saying, okay, now you've got this system that's got, you know, X number of drills on it. Let's flip these around. Okay, that range, we can't see it on passives. But if I flip it to active, I can see it. And here's the other thing. You have to think about if anyone is trying to find us right now. Let's look at radars on active. Turn off our hostile option, or turn on our hostile option, and also show the asteroids. Really? Oh my god, this active radar is very interesting. Okay. Not that key. Let's see what we can do. Come on, game. Want to see those asteroids first, or you can see the enemy ships first? Okay, so in order to see a nearby asteroid, remember, you have to keep in mind, let me do a little explanation here. When Wasted started off the PvPvP map, asteroid generation was still on. So when all of the teams launched into orbit, they didn't necessarily find the same set of asteroids. I really suspect that what happened is, especially for Red Team, I know ours was not a straight up jaunt into orbit. We were off quite a little bit. And I would suspect that Green Team probably did the same thing. In fact, any team really hopefully did not launch directly into orbit over their base and, you know, find an asteroid set up there. So we're all more than likely have found different sets of asteroids. Now, I remember from Wasted that there are only 20 asteroids left in the world, because after a little while we realized the infinite asteroid field just means we're just going to keep hopping around and not fight each other. Not that that really changed anything, turning them off, but he locked it down, and at that point we had 20 asteroids left in the world. Red Team knows about 10 of them. They have GPS coordinates for 10 asteroids. That means there's 10 more out there we don't know about. So the teams that are out there scouting are going to be in this sort of setup. They're going to have to be active radar and full power to spot them, because by the time you get close enough to actually see the thing, like that one there, or that one there, we're going to be... it just... hang on, let me try something here. Let's... max power, okay. If I set up to max power, sure, I can spot... oh, good lord. I didn't realize I had this many asteroids. Okay. Well, the good news is this is only... there's only going to be 20 that would show up if you did this in the game. And again, keeping in mind that you're lighting yourself up. So really, if anything, I would consider doing this, jumping out to a throwaway jump point out in the middle of nowhere and turning things up max, So you're still somewhat close to it, but let's go back and make this a bit more saner. If I said 1 reactor... Okay, so that is not good enough to pick up the forces up ahead. Interesting. It doesn't pick up the... Oh, no, hang on. I know it's not picking up the forces up ahead. That would be because Mr. Farrell turned off show only hostiles. Okay, so that's good enough to pick that up there from this range. So I'm trying to figure out what anyone out looking for asteroids is going to be doing, because that's... At this point, honestly, covering the moon is completely trivial. I could jump over to the moon right now and set up something in about probably 4 different positions over the moon, and we would have clear line of sight over all of the approaches. We could blockade... Well, we can't necessarily blockade the moon, but we could stage forces around the moon within jump distance of each other to try to catch each other. Don't forget, when they put the radars at max power, the teams will be able to see the general area of a team by asteroid density. Okay, well, yeah, I think I see what you're saying there, where you're saying, okay, if there's, 8 asteroids in a cluster, then you probably know that you may have found the other team. That's entirely true. It's a good point. Operating at this level is what's required to spot them, and the asteroids not so much. Let's actually try... I'm trying to think through what's going on here. Let's drop it down to 5 megawatts. That's good enough to pick them up. That's right. Right now I'm at passive range for them, so 5 megawatts is good enough, but not good enough to pick up any of the asteroids. So that's actually good to know. Any team that is out actively hunting for asteroids is going to have their radars juiced. So now I'm playing the part of a force. But let's say I don't care about asteroids. Let's say I'm just cruising space, as time wasting as that would be. Passive mode, I'm not detecting anything. Active, I'm getting that. Let's back off a little bit. There we go. Somewhere around 33.40. Kind of creep through here. Find the exact spot, the sweet spot here. Come on. Bingo. Okay, 33.31 away. That's the sweet spot. So at that point, I can't see anything on passives. There's really not much point into going out hunting the asteroids like this then. I mean, let's look at it this way, guys. And yeah, Hunter, absolutely. Whatever you do, do not spoil anything for me or the rest of the... well, you guys could talk about it, but do that in the PvP series chat spoiler share channel over on the Armco Discord, because that way you guys can talk about it there, or you can still talk about it in the... Actually, I can't say talk about it in the comments because I'm looking at the comments and I'm looking at the chat sometimes. Oh, that makes it hard. But yeah, definitely if you guys want to kind of talk about stuff that you don't want me to necessarily be aware, because obviously, I mean, to be upfront with you guys, we do have a chat before and after the games, and there is a little bit of information sharing going on. The drill thing was kind of mentioned before, and I'm only commenting on it now because that information has been made public, so I can actually talk about that. And just like there are things that I know of the other teams that I cannot talk about. Various things that we've done. Actually, let me see if I still have these screenshots. There's something that you guys might not necessarily have caught on to. Give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes thing here. If I still have them. Problem is, I've rebuilt the computer since then, so they are who knows where at this point. One of the things that I did, if you guys are watching if you're watching the other POVs during the tech drop, what you know is green got there first. They got the tech. Blue and red kind of were there at about the same time. We were down a ship because the SIO glitched out on its jump, and I had to copy paste it back in, which of course meant the jump drive had to completely recharge anyways. The funny thing is that, where is this stupid screenshot? I know I've got it. The funny thing is, I was there in a fighter. We finally did get the SIO jumped in, and at that point the fight was pretty much done. Both sides got out of there pretty quickly. The funny thing, Farrell's losing his mind trying to find these screen captures that he knows he took. And they exist somewhere in the world, and apparently I can't find any of them. Ah, I hate it when this happens. Did I save those off? Probably not. This is what happens when you have to rebuild your computer like 3 or 4 times, and then all your files wind up going in 16 different folders. In my case, that's almost literally what happened. Because now I've got like 4 or 5 backups of Space Engineer screenshots. And apparently none of them actually have the ones I'm looking for, which is really stupid. Because I even saved the file off the folder. Put them in. Not to save pictures. Ah, come on. This is ridiculous. I saved those things off for a reason, and now they are gone again. Oh, hang on. I know I can get them. Bear with me a second, folks. I am going to fire up the Discord. It's something that you guys didn't see if you're watching other POVs, is I attacked in my fighter. This was a fighter that was very much a throwaway fighter. It was in no way combat capable. And the reasoning for that is because I built it off of the little mini thug that I built for the asteroid PvP. So same sort of similar idea. The problem with that is it doesn't work out that well when you armor it with heavy armor. So this was not a very maneuverable craft. And the net result is I said, well, you know what, it's going to take me far too long to grind this thing down and be incredibly stupid to have to do that. Whereas with what was going on, open the original here, and pull this over and see if I can a display capture. There we go. Sorry about the sizing on this. It's not perfect. Full screen. This was stuff that I saw going in with the fighter. So really, kind of what you do, what I did was I went in and I was basically going in for recon. I was not going in to fight. If I landed a couple punches, that was great, but this thing was an entirely throwaway craft and not worth the resources that were even there. So if I go back to, I mean, at this point, I even tried, you know, I threw missiles at them just for the heck of it to see maybe I might hit with anything. The intent here was to at least be able to see something, and it worked out far better than a lot of people are probably going to realize. That's the ruins of the Big Mac that went in. And that, again, that was also, it's not a combat capable craft. So the fact that that happened, it happens. That is the blue team's other ship. So we have very good intel on what that ship was like, and also could see that it took some pretty heavy damage there. But even better, and again, because at this point I'd even shot off my ammo, so I had nothing on me to be of any use. That is how you find out where someone is jumping to. If I'd been thinking a little clearer, I would have gone for the seats that are on the SIO or the Big Mac, because there were seats over here. We retrofitted at the very last minute to carry an assault team to go grab the tech. If there are any seats left, that's how I could have actually gone with them, because they had grabbed onto the wreckage here. Problem is, going with them, it would have been pretty obvious at some point that, you know, that someone had hitchhiked, and, you know, that would have been bad. What I did after this was I basically just kept going, and I jetted out along their path. And I took a couple GPS coordinates in succession about, you know, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers. So I have a very good arc of where their jump led to. That's kind of what happened with that. So when you talk about something like... You don't close that browser, because I will completely screw up that if I do. Pretty awful. That's the that's kind of the nice thing about that. I know where blue went, and not only that, but we got some very good close-up shots of their very big ship, which we suspect is their base ship. Basically, we suspect that's their base period. And also their little combat ship that they built that's clearly... I wouldn't say it's clearly. It could have surface to orbit capabilities. But their main ship was very clearly still set up for surface to orbit capability. Because they still have large hydrogen engines on, or large Atmo engines on that thing. And if you're running large Atmo when you get to space and you're not planning to go back down on the planet, it's kind of wasted weight on the craft. So... that's how we know that we don't really have to necessarily worry too much about blue right at the moment, because they can have the planet all they want, and in fact that actually makes them easier to spot, because they will have to strip mine the lakes to get that thing to orbit and back again repeatedly. And if they don't strip mine the lake, then they've got to park that thing somewhere, and they could be parking out close enough out in the open that a lot issue could make it visible, or even just the block deformation of seeing where they've parked would make it visible. So, getting back to what I'm trying to figure out here. I'm playing the part of a stalking ship going out on search, so that means I'm definitely going to be running radar active. At this point, I need to figure out what distance we're picking that up, which we said was about here. Then nudge forward. Come on, a little more. Really? There you go. Okay. So we're running at that. And that is a lot of active sets down there for them to pick that up. That was one small reactor. So let's take a jump over to the defending fleet here. I clicked the wrong button. I hate when I do that. Teleport here, please. Thank you. Okay, so over here, the question is the passive simulation. What are we seeing on you? In a spot to put a blasted cockpit. It's actually not a bad spot for one, to be honest. It'd be a bad idea to have some external, capable craft. Alright, so... I am seeing... Wow, nothing. I mean, the Stonebreaker, the Big Mac, all the passive stuff is not picking up that at all. Let's go over to... I believe you are... what to get into? What is it? Had you set up for... Nope. Nope. ridiculously laid out. There's a reason why I did not go with this design. Alright, so you are passive only, right? Okay, same problem, not picking it up at all. Right? Y, however, is running in active mode. And the only battle pancake I see is the one next to me there. The grid's out there in the distance, and... Yep, nothing. So the actives on this are not picking it up, which is kind of interesting considering I'm running... radar, let's spell it right. I'm running full power on that sucker. Okay, so that makes sense that I can see it then. But at that power and an active set out there, some funky math going on there. I'm kind of interesting. And yeah, I really do suspect that the ship that Green Team found is my fighter, because I didn't abandon it at the point where the cockpit got shot out. I abandoned it at the point where I felt it was advantageous to me to actually get out of it. It lost most of its mobility already, so I kind of figured before I get shot up getting out, I might as well get out while it's still being shot at. And that paid off, because basically that turned my fighter into a bit of a decoy on its own, and I was able to back off away from the gunfire range and just kind of ghost the ships that were out there. So you're active on Max 2, and I'm willing to bet you're not going to see it either. Let's see, Battle Pancake, Stonebreaker. That's an entire fleet here. Let's see. Well, actually, the Stonebreaker's closer. Let's see if it can pick it up. Big Mac and combat fighter. The fight over there in the debris, and yeah. I think it's right next to the Big Mac, and it can't even position it right. Wow, I like that. Active radar, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make sure this thing's actually pumped up. Yeah. Active. Actually, let's make sure that it's also showing... Yep. So it'll show friendly targets. 3 ships, 50,000 megawatts of radar activity between them, and it can't see them. It can't see me out there. So, what I'm thinking of... Quite good. I'm kind of thinking... Active's okay to use, but you just gotta keep the power down. There's no advantage to having the power up. Because if I can pick active up with that, now I'm playing the part of a hunter. Let's turn off the asteroids, because those are starting to get on my nerves there. I mean, I'm picking up that grid at that distance, not seeing myself. That one's got its power jacked up full. Everything over there, Stonebreaker definitely has its grid jacked up full. It can't see me. If I start heading in, I should start seeing more targets over there, so we'll turn off the GPS for that waypoint. There's the penetrator. There's another grid over there. Let's see which one that was. Okay, I picked up the Kepri. Have not picked up the big back or the pancake over there. Promise, I need to actually see at what point I show up on their radars. Really wish I had the other computer set up so I could get the camera count on. It's close to 30. And let's see what we get. So I can only see the active rigs over there, which at this point means that really, there's my passive radar, completely useless. There's my active. Okay, so blasting full power on the radar block has absolutely no use. Good to know. And yeah, I definitely don't want to count any team out. Bowman definitely sounded like he was very happy with what his team has been doing. I think really, well, actually, I suspect that there has been some information shared with the team, and I'm okay with that. To kind of hopefully wake them up a little bit as to where they are as far as things go. I mean, at this point, I suspect that right now we're distant second. We've got a pretty good setup. We've got a great resource ship. We've got some pretty good small grid or large grids coming together. And the tech drop really didn't cost us anything. I mean, the Big Mac was very easily replaced. And the things that we got out of it were much better. But in all honesty, I've been worrying more about and trying to focus red team on going after green, because if you've got a 20 by 20 drill head, you're not really hurting for resources, and God knows what they're doing with that and how long they've been doing it. And you know, I don't want to be jumping at shadows or anything, but at the same time, it's definitely, they are definitely a major threat. Whereas if blue is taking up that base ship everywhere they go, because that has to be their base ship. The size of that, the undercarriage on it looked like it was big enough to hold a couple of refineries. And really, there are some advantages to doing that if you're going up to, you know, to orbit, because you can refine on the spot. But at the same time, if you're transporting all that all the way back down to the planet, ooh, there must have been some hairy landings in that thing, I'll bet. We're gonna jump back over to the other battle pancake and see if my actives are picking up anything. And just to make this a little bit easier. Let's see. Nothing, 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 and a whole lot of nothing. What range do you have to get to actually be seen? You know, I'm kind of tossed up here, because on one hand, it makes more sense operating these ships as passives. But with this few small reactors on board, I suspect that's why I'm able to creep up this close. Green are getting a little bored. Yeah, I can't blame them at this point, because if you've got that kind of a big thing, what more can you really do? I mean, you know, you get to this point of, okay, well, we've built this ship, what can we do? Can we make it bigger? Well, there's an upper limit to the returns that you're going to get on that particular transaction. Just because you have the resources to do something doesn't necessarily mean that you can. And so I can kind of read that, you know, that would make... I'd say that certainly makes some sense. As for blue and red teaming up on green, I am not ruling that out. I mean, at this point, for us to go after blue would take us some time, because assuming they're on the surface, we have to hunt them down. And I suspect Jam may have found signs of them, but at this point, depending on how many lakes they've had to scour out, who knows what he's actually seeing. It could be, you know, something that was mined up weeks ago. Or they could just be in space, too. They could be out in an asteroid or hiding in space laughing at us the whole time while we constantly try to find them on the planet. Gonna slow down here at 25 kilometers and see if we can see myself now. Let's pop that cockpit first. To the other metal pancake. So yeah, I'm not ruling it out because after all, we did get the tech drop went pretty well, it seemed, or not the tech drop, the trade. We managed to pull off something on that in PvP no less, which is even more amusing. And I think we could work together. It's just the question of always that case of what happens after green is demolished, and then there's the other question of, is blue in any shape to actually take on green with us? I can't say for certain, and it's kind of, we've seen 2 of their ships and that's about it. If they've got more ships, then that's great, but if they don't, if they're still running small fighters have a place, and certainly would if we joined fleets. But for the most part, the large grids are probably going to be what's needed to take out. Well, I mean, let's be honest. If we're really talking about something, we're talking about something that could be this complex for all I know, which could be, it's slow as molasses, it doesn't turn well, it doesn't have much on board for power, but let me tell you, the amount of firepower that you could stick on something the size of the whale here, oh yeah, there's no way I could get anywhere close to that. So still no sign at 25 kilometers out. I'm gonna try to close to 15. Really push the envelope here. I mean, if anything, at this point, this is now more or less a stealth ship, if anything. Let's see. Sorry, trying to keep up the chat here. Resource collection makes it a large threat. Yep. Not to mention I don't think he's the base ship as much as my thing. Yeah, I mean, in all, it will be like us taking the Stonebreaker into battle. I mean, at this point, it's relatively confined to a support ship, and if we absolutely have to, once it's a little better protected, I think I would risk it coming into battle if we really needed to turn the tide, so to speak. Wasted is on today, Richard. He's streaming. Actually, looks like he's been through a whole ton of games now. He started off with that new ripoff of Theme Hospital, moved over to another game, and now he's presumably playing with Macor on Sea of Thieves. Let's see. So he's actually over on Twitch right now. I don't think he'd watch this predicted. No, it's also one of the reasons why I'm okay with doing this kind of testing right now, because I know he's not going to be watching. And in all honesty, at this point, the team captains know enough about what's going on behind the scenes that, you know, we have to talk to each other. We have to be able to say, hey, you know, things aren't working well. We need to do something to change it up, or we need to find some way to you know, make us actually fight, because nobody's happy that no one's fighting, basically. Let's be perfectly honest. None of the teams are thrilled about that fact. So, you know, we've had to talk about things. Okay, well, why aren't we fighting it? Well, this is kind of where we're all at. But this is a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. So, one of the things, aside from Entity's excellent job of being EXO for the red team, is he's also helping me out, because there are things that I don't want to say or I shouldn't be saying, or I can't say, because I know things that are going on behind the scenes. So he's kind of my check and balance. If it sounds like I'm starting to kind of, use out-of-game knowledge for stuff, then that's the indication that that I need to... Actually, I can do this. Get the missile turret. He's my check and balance, so if I start to sound like I'm talking about something that's based on out-of-game knowledge, he will indeed kind of give me a nudge and say, hey, wait a minute, how do you know that? So there's our target at 15 kilometers out. Excellent rendering, by the way. And I mean that in all honesty. 15 kilometers out is pretty darn good for that, but of course, it's single player. What happens if I turn off my actives and go to passives? Passives are completely useless. So really, I think what we're coming up with here is I would have to dogpile a ton of passive radars on here, I suspect. Let's try that real quick while I'm here. Give you 3 on that side. 3 on that side. Did that improve the situation? Those radars are all on by default. But they need to be hostiles. Okay. That many passives finally picked up stuff. Picked up that again. Interesting. 2. Does that still work? I can still pick them up with that. So these are passive mode radars. Maybe there's something said for the line of sight. Maybe active doesn't require line of sight, but passives do. Alright, let's turn off the passive on. Aha! Okay, guys, here's the answer to the question. Do radar blocks need line of sight? The answer is yes and no. Active radars do not need line of sight. Passive radars need line of sight. Because the passive radar I have on board here, which is now off, is buried in the hull. The passive radar that I have on top here that is showing me that signal out there is indeed visible. It can see outside. So if I turn you on in the hull, you see nothing. If I turn on the one on the hull, if I turn on the right one on the hull, that's the one on the hull. Now I see it. That's the trick. Okay. That changes things up quite a bit. For starters, we don't need that stupid radar in here. Buried in the back. Which is good, because I'd rather go back to that being armor. Okay. So passive needs line of sight, which means basically front of ship for the most part. Or, well, here's the other problem. If it needs line of sight, then the confirmation is also, does it need to be on the outside of the hull? Or can I put it in a spot that's a little more better protected, but doesn't have line of sight? For instance, let's say that I wanted to do something silly and mount it on the back of the ship here. That in no way has line of sight out from the block itself, and would appear to confirm the hypothesis. Radar dome, passive. Oh. Okay, that's trickier. So what we really need on every ship, then, now I should have visibility. No. What the heck? Oh, right. Hang on. I'm not using it right. Turn that one off. I forgot to... Okay, so now I can see it in the confirmation. This is a valid test. Okay, so it just has to be anywhere on the exterior. It does not have to be facing in... Could I have gone to the mod developer and asked these questions? Yes, I absolutely could have. But you know what? I like being able to figure this one out for myself. So anywhere on the outside of the hull is where that radar needs to be, which is good news. So what I can do is actually shield one back there at the rear thrust. Then what we do, like I said earlier, is that's my new passive block. I'm gonna turn you into our active radar. What I was trying to type there. Passive, working grids only, show only hostiles is off. Those blocks come back. Good. The active radar is going to switch over to active at just enough power for an onboard reactor. Hostiles is off. Asteroids are off. Asteroids are off. Okay. Let's get these set up right. So that's our active radar there. This is that. Okay. Passives are off. Active is on. Active is off. Passives on. Okay, now that I know this, before I do that, 1,500 kilometers. 1,500 kilometers? That's way up. Let's check the other battle pancake and find out what we're seeing. So, knowing that this is set up passive, that passive radar is indeed working because it's external. And nothing, not a trace of that ship up there. Let's check the Stonebreaker because that is definitely the closest to my approach. Stonebreaker is not seen it either. Okay, let's check on should have control over that. No, I don't. Okay, thank you, game. You know, you think player control would actually mean that you can actually, you know, basically be in a terminal on it. Maybe I'm mistaken about how that works. Passives off. It's on. Let's confirm. Active's on. Passive on. Okay. 14 kilometers away. Survey says. Is anybody out there? Come on, Stonebreaker. Tell me you can at least see something. It's a negative. You don't see anything. Active. Yep. That is set up properly. Wow. You know, for having a pretty good amount of radar in the area here, you can't see jack squat. So really, the best defense that I can say for our team is passive radar. Well, for everyone who's got a ship and can spare a small reactor to power it, 2 radars. One will be a passive radar and one is an active radar. And the active radar is set to use all the power that comes out of one of the reactors. And the advantage that we get with that is A, flexibility. But B, passives. This is hideously OP. If anyone's out there using active, and the great thing is if anyone is using passive, then they're not going to pick us up either. So if anyone really does want to find us, they have to be active, and it's not going to do any good, and it's just going to let us know in advance. The reason we're not fighting, Brzezinski, is the, and I apologize if I've just butchered that name. The reason we're not fighting is because it's just the case of we're not running into each other. I mean, when you think about it, we're all pretty happy building up stuff and building and getting more resources, and building and resources and building. And it's not like we're sitting around idle doing that. I mean, we're doing nothing. Green team, I imagine, might be at this point just out of boredom, but I mean, at this point, red team, we've been actively going out to the asteroids. We've been out around the moon. We found the spot on the moon where Wasted apparently crashed a ship, I believe, and found the discarded torpedoes off of said ship, the manual fire torpedoes. You know, and we're able to kind of piece together some of what was going on, and we found their mining ship on the moon, and we ran across green on the planet, and we ran across blue on the planet. There has been fighting. It's just not the all-out, drag-out, bare-knuckle fighting. And yeah, that's what I'm testing right now, driver. The fact that I was at 15 kilometers and was not being picked up at all, even with active on, but could still see them. Actually, let's, I'm still on passive. Let's turn off passive and go to active. And still see them here. So what's going to happen is we're going to hit a point where passive, well, active is going to fit a drop off at 32 kilometers out. So we can kind of push the craft a bit further to get faster. Putting it on a rotor would kind of look neat, but I don't think it would necessarily do anything. But yeah, there's been fighting. I mean, I've killed Wasted in a fighter. Well, Jam and I killed him in a fighter with a turret. I've been shot down at this point, technically. Even if you can argue I abandoned ship before the ship itself was fully destroyed. And we have had, you know, we had Jam and a couple other folks do some damage to the blue base. And blue certainly did some damage to us by going, you know, finding our ground site. The really funny thing is when you look at, I suspect if you go back and look at all the POVs, you'll find out that all three teams actually grounded probably within about 40 to 50 kilometers of each other. Or at least they're deployed in the landing ship, about 40 kilometers of each other. We lucked out because we moved a bit further out because of the terrain, and I think that may have actually caused there not to be so many early game shenanigans, shall we say. We're on active. Let's go to passive. Should drop off any moment. I should see basically blips start to go out up ahead there. That'll be my indication that we're getting close. Come on. There's one. There's two. Start braking. And come on, game. Well, we're at the bare range that the passive can detect. And there's the active. Okay. So active picked them up far, farther away. How far do we get until we get out of active then? There we go. So active just lost it too. Passive doesn't have it either. So the range doesn't even necessarily work out properly. Huh. Because you guys are saying that the range on the passive has a further range. And if that's the case, then getting that one there, getting that one there. That's passive detection on both here and active. Let's see. Am I running on the passive right now? just turn both on. Here's the other question. Which one has precedence if both are on? Answer to that. Probably. The range is about the same on both, I'm guessing. 333.32 before I lost that, if I recall correctly. Okay, now that means I just picked it up on something different. Turn our active off. Passive is seeing it. Active is seeing it. Okay, there we go. That means our passive cannot currently see it, but our active can. And the range on the active is just a little further. There we go. No, in this case, driver, it's the opposite. The active radar has better range than the passive. It's kind of odd. What happens if we juice the active radar? I'm wondering if... Okay, did we just pick it up? No, we just picked up the... whatchamacallit, the skin face guy. Skin face sounds like some sort of horror movie villain. I saw that pop in, but it was way towards... Okay, yeah, so if I want to pick them up at that range, that's a ridiculous amount of power to put into it. Yikes. That's over 3 small reactors right there. Okay, so that's definitely not worth it. And really, all we're talking about is just a handful of meters. If I nose forward just a little bit, that active is going to pick it up. Right there. That is ridiculous. Because that's the one that's on. Passive is off. Have I tried putting an active radar on the outside of the ship? Okay, good point. Let's back off. I'll turn off the... Back up a little bit so we're out of range there. Active radar is now off. And we will put an active radar outside the ship. It's about the same location, I think, as what's internal, so... Active... Same amount of power as the one in the ship. Hostiles and asteroids are off. Nope. There you go. It was on screen for a second when I got within range of it. Come on. Just a little more. There you go. So the range is outside or inside the ship, about the same. You know, I got no problems with how much the block costs. I think the concern I have is it is very much... My conclusion here is if you're running a radar, it's not worth it to put more than one large grid, small reactor into that radar for power. If you bump the juice up, you're going to be far more you're going to be ridiculously noticeable, and your detection range doesn't really seem to increase all that. You got to really bump up to get just a couple more meters of detection range. And to give you guys a case in point, let's move ahead just enough that we pick it up again with passives. Come on. Okay, there we go. So that is 3.3 kilometers out. Now I'm picking up the Stonebreaker. And keeping in mind the Stonebreaker is an active grid right now. So let's go over to the Stonebreaker. And yeah, the other battle pancake. And let's set all the active grids over here to what I'm considering to be the sane value, basically. So that's going to be a radar dome, one small reactor on a large grid. Do the same to all the other active radars out here. So you're passive, you're passive, you're active. Run here. I'm willing to bet this is going to make a significant difference here. Let's see, let me stick your... Because now I'm not blasting anything out. Confirm I can still see everything in local space. That's good. So the wrecks that were over there, I can still pick them up. And we'll go back to the battle pancake. So our intruder ship. Okay, there we go. So now I can't see it on passives. I can't see it on active either. Okay. So yeah, 0 value to blasting the radar full power. Now the question is, how close am I going to get with these new settings? That should be passive right, passive on. You should see a grid pop into existence at some point there. Presumably. Just cruising through space. Okay, so... The reason why radar uses detectable by others is because it's happening when you have active radar. Because you have to think about it. The way active radar works is you're sending out basically, I'm going to probably watch the scientific explanation. You're sending electromagnetic energy in the form of a radio pulse, basically. And that's going out and hitting a target and reflecting back to your receiver, which is basically the length of time it takes between the pulse going out and seeing the pulse tells you how far away the object is. And, you know, like speed guns work that way because they take, multiple samples of that value and turn that into your speed. The way passive radar works is it's only listening for those kinds of pulses. It doesn't care what radar system sent it. It doesn't actually send any pulses out. And that's how it's not detectable, because you're detecting an active radar in use because you're seeing the things that it is sending out, basically. But I gotta say, this is kind of disturbing that I'm getting this close now. Passives are picking up the Deceptor Light Cruiser very well with max radar on that sucker. So max radar does nothing. Max power to the radars doesn't get you jack squat except light you up to everything, and you don't get much out of return. You don't get anything out of it, really. The tiniest of extra distance. It's an exponential fade on that. Yeah, that actually is a good point. In reality, passive is only just going to give you the bearing to something, because you can tell that you can tell where the noise is coming from, basically. Come on. So what I'm thinking is the red team doctrine here is probably going to wind up being... Let's turn our active on, see if I get anything. Nope. Red team doctrine is probably going to be to stay at that 15 that's large grid small reactor power setting on actives when we use them. Because that's going to give us the best chance right now of detecting someone out actively searching. Because, like, here we go. That's the grid right up there. That's the collection of grids, and the passives have not picked it up. If we switch over to active, even the actives haven't picked it up. Wow. That's interesting. Ah. This I did not expect. However, the thing we have to keep in mind is this is also way too far of a render distance. Multiplayer is not going to render this far out. If we had the trade surplus rendering at that distance in multiplayer, that would be absolutely great. It doesn't render in until you're almost on top of the blasted thing 90% of the time. Okay, so half speed on passives. Let's switch to active. The other reason I might not be picking these up so well is because the power usage to power actives at 50 megawatts is much higher than that of doing passives at 800 watts. There's no way we can actually tell what mode we're actually using because we don't have access to programming blocks on the PvP world. I could pull up a programming block right now and find out what we're using, but I'm trying to treat this as much as what it would be like in vanilla. And I have to say right now, this is kind of scary that I'm still not picking anything up at this distance. I can clearly read whale on the side of the ship, so how in the heck am I seeing that thing out there is burning away at 50 megawatts of power? These guys up here are all burning at 15. Well, on the upside, I think this is actually even more of a valid test because this is proof of what settings we can use to keep our fleet safe, but still have radar up. So hopefully we'll have at least some warning when something gets ridiculously close, but I don't know, this is starting to feel like beyond ridiculously close at this point. I mean, I can see all the ships there clearly. Passives are on. There we go. 10 kilometers out. And now I'm picking up. Yep, now there's all the ones that have the active sensors or active radar running right now. So that's passive. That's active. And you'll note I'm not picking up the other ships there with active. Let's see how long until I lose passive here. I'm willing to bet it's going to be about 10 kilometers right now. There we go. Now I'm losing down just the Stonebreaker. 924. 925. Come on, pop off the screen. It's a bit away from the other ships, so it's going to take a little while at least. 8, 9. Come on. I could speed up, but it doesn't break very quickly. Oh, come on. Disappear. 2. Speed. Basically, I just want to get to the point where I lose it on passive and then see if I've still got it on active. There we go. Okay. Yeah, just shy of 10 kilometers. Okay, so passive off, active on. Okay, active picked up 2 of them. So again, the range drop off, and let's see what happens when I back up here a little bit. What we should see is the penetrator drop off again. No, Stonebreaker drop first. Oh. Penetrator being the larger grid and the more reactors on it. Okay, now I think I see your game. How much further do I see the penetrator for? Come on, game. Don't have all night here. Yeah, the penetrator is definitely being picked up off of the reactor signature, and so a little over. That's nudge should get me back within range. Come on. Yeah, like 2 seconds ago, just a slight distance away. There we go. 10.58, so passive is going to pick up, and there's the answer to that question. If I turn on passive radar, I don't see, well, at this point it's not going to see any other results because there are no other results there. Okay, penetrator's got four large grid, large reactors on it. And a couple of small reactor, large grid small reactors. My understanding, the mod knows the locations of ships, all the ships around. It only calculates whether the ships should have been detected or would have been detected. It's a combination of things that we found out. Like, for instance, passive needs to have clear line of sight outside. It has to be on the outside of the hull, similar to how the shield that other shield generator mod works, the bubble shield. Active does not have to be outside the ship. Active can be inside the ship, and that's because passive is using line of sight. Active is using the knowledge that it has about the grid. So, knowing that now, and that I've got the active radar on, and I'm just seeing the penetrator, on this design, I have reactors. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reactors. Now let's go in to the battle group here. And knowing the penetrator can see it, and the Stonebreaker see it. This is the closest grid that has active radar. Nope. I am at that range on active, completely stealthy. Okay, let's try one other thing. We know that multiple radars will change things up a bit. Say I've got a grid that can use multiples. 1500. Actually, let's try something. Split the power. So same overall power usage, but 2 active sets. Active, asteroids, hostiles. Now, theoretically, power consumption is the same for that. But do I get any better detection at range? Trying to basically decide whether it's worth having multiple radars on a grid or not. Okay, there's your answers. Detectable at the same range. So overall, power utilization across those radars works as you would expect. Find the... oh, where the heck is it? Oh, large grid. That's close to it. Try to see if I can at least save a little bit of time trying to get back over there, but that didn't really help. Let's set both of these up to... I should see basically the same thing I saw earlier, where just increasing the overall power is completely useless. Because I'm not going to see... I don't see the grid out there. And all it does is increase the distance in which I'm detected. I think I might have a radar doctrine for our team then. See, I'm backing away and now detectable at a longer range. Okay. So, here's the team doctrine for red team coming up. And I will even double check this. Get out of the cockpit, go over, back over. I know, I could probably just set this up a lot quicker if I just bothered to put antennas on everything and control them remotely, but I'm trying not to do that because they do seem to have an impact there. And if we turn that radar off, go back over to Pancake, I should not be able to see that grid now because I backed away far enough from it. Yep. Okay. When I surprise your SE stream with my after-hour work beer. How do you manage to keep your calm? I've lost my calm on stream. 2 weeks ago, I definitely lost my calm on stream. You know, it's just, that's the way it works, is some people just kind of grate against your nerves a little more, and you just kind of, you deal with it, or you know, try to find ways to make it work for your, you know, work in your advantage. It's the same thing with any sort of team dynamic. There's going to be people on the team that you're working with that just don't rub you the right way, and you just have to find a way to grin and bear it, basically. Okay, so let's wrap this up with my lessons learned for tonight. Believe it or not, when I started out tonight, I was actually worrying more about trying to build a giant battle platform and not necessarily messing around with the radar. I thought the radar was going to be a quick thing. Ha ha ha, don't I wish. Alright, so, what have we learned? Red team radar. I don't know what I call it, doctrine, I called it. One radar, one active radar, and one passive radar per person. Clean that up to make that a bit easier. One active, one passive per person. Because obviously the passive, even though it's only an 800 watt draw, it's still going to draw power. 3, max limit radar power, 15 megawatts, or 15000 kilowatts. And detection range, approximately 10K. That's with those settings under the assumption that we're looking at the assumption that the other team is using the same sort of settings we are. So anything higher than that is and less return and detectable much farther away. What else can we say that we've learned? We've also said that the passive must be exterior mount. Must see space. It is not That's because this is a line of sight based on grid, not block. That's an important one to remember. Active is interior mount okay, interior or exterior mount okay, no improvement. If exterior, and 8 is G menu has no options for flipping radar mode or power, just on off. And that's why it's a lot easier to have 2 radars or someone on your ship who's a gunner who can swap the settings for you. Because of course you can preset the power and change and flip to active, but it is it's still something you've got to go into the menu to actually do. For on off is a lot easier. Yeah, Hunter Delta, that was definitely the part where I lost my cool. It's a little difficult doing radio discipline when you've got 10 people on a team, because inevitably you've got 3 people off mining, you get 2 people on a scout mission, and then a bunch of other people are just trying to communicate. And even just that overlapping kind of talk tends to get on my nerves quite a bit, especially because you can hear people asking questions multiple times, and they're constantly just getting talked over, unfortunately. Let's see. Could you place a radar dome on a piston depending? You could. Would I though? I don't really know. I mean, I don't know how the game would actually treat that is the problem. Well, actually, no. I know how exactly that'll treat. The problem is, in order to do that, you can put on a piston, but putting on a piston, it's still going to be outside the ship. Oh, good God, yes. Please turn that brightness down a little bit. And smaller. Where are you? What's this? Okay, so there's our rules of the road for the radar, at least. And I mean, really, here's the thing. If you put it on a piston, I mean, let's say that, for instance, I'm using this part of the hull for doing the radar, and I want to mount that on piston. And let's just say I'm willing to sacrifice an engine there. Okay, do that. Well, for starters, I've got to already worry about having it in a spot where I can have a block that lets it slide. So that now means I'm going to have to do a blast door block in this specific location, and may need a... I mean, I'm just doing this to kind of do this on the fly. So we do that, and we'll say that there's enough clearance there. It's probably not going to have a problem. And just for completeness, that. So now we've got designed that enclosure for it. Now we need to go through and stick a radar on it. That's going to be that. Now, as far as this is concerned, this is already outside the hull. So this should be perfectly fine as far as being equivalent to that. So what you're really talking about is not necessarily mounting it on a piston. What you're really talking about is you need a door that can cover it to keep it safe. And that definitely goes well beyond anything I would consider safe in the series right now, because honestly, the slightest thing that could invite clang seems like it would do it. Look at that. You can even see the reflection of the drive plume real time off of that thing. That's something Keen can't do with their own windows. Why? Perfectly matte spherical reflection. No problem. No lag in sim speed. Look at it. 1.0. Perfectly fine. Now, if you really wanted to try something, where I would like to actually play around with something would be what we don't have in the game, which would be, as far as grids go, there is the mini radar here, and that is a 3x3, which means that this would, as far as if you wanted to keep it safe, let's see if I can mock it up real quick here. Which I might have better luck with. Drop pop dock, yes I do. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with it. I know it's not going to have everything. In fact, it's not going to have about 90% of it because it's all modded blocks. What I'm looking for is that. And, oh, that's right, I'm not going to be able to do a door on this hull, aren't I? Because I don't have that particular... Yeah, I don't have the proper mod. That's okay, I can still... That's still the same size opening, so let's be right here. If I do this and put in... Just to give you a bit of a comparison. If you had the small ship block mod on, that would be the way to that you could do a cover for the radar at that point. So what you're looking at is then inside of this thing, that's going to be on a piston that pushes it out when you need it, and it pulls it back in when you don't. Problem is that you need it operating in one mode pretty consistently. So, I mean, as you saw, you can sneak up on stuff pretty quick out there. Just a slight little difference in distance makes it that much easier to see stuff. It's 100 meters any given direction, it'll pop in suddenly, and at that point, that's when you want to say, oops, nope, I better stop and slow down type thing. So, I kind of think that's where I'm at with the findings there. Let's see what we got here. Separate channels for the groups based on the task they're doing. I thought about that. The problem is I want to keep chatter, you know, out there for everyone to hear, because if something's going on with a scouting mission and they've run across the enemy, at that point that's a okay, we all need to kind of stop and listen in case we need to react. Okay, so someone's out on a scouting mission, they just saw a ship. Okay, that's a point where we need to stop what we're doing, get everything back together, and be ready to respond. So there's disadvantages to having everything spread out, and also it means we'd have to do it on Discord, because we don't have separate channels on the. Well, I can't make separate channels, at least on TeamSpeak. I don't know how Green Team is necessarily doing, if they're using the caves as a second setup. But the problem is then from a POV angle, that means now suddenly half the team's not there, and I just really want to make sure that we've got everyone, you know, actually there, and it's also easier for me to keep an eye on them instead of trying to. I mean, can you imagine if I had to stop what I was doing all the time and constantly switch back and forth between the various channels? It'd be pretty disruptive. So, while it's not ideal that everyone is, you know, we're all sharing the same chat channel, I think it's, you know, the other solutions are just a little more wonky. That's okay, Gutnam. Perfectly fine. Yeah, well, any cams on the ships that stream to the mothership, I mean, we could with laser antennas and make it, you know, definitely undetectable. What would be more useful is if the radars weren't locked down to one person. That's what's killing us. Because then at that point, then I absolutely would stick an active radar on a ship that's already going to be easily detectable anyways, and run passives on everything else, and just laser network the hell out of everything. So that everyone's got a laser, you know, that's on the grid, that we have antennas set up that we can broadcast everything across all the ships. So we know where active signatures are, and if we're spread out, we know where all the passives are. Just a little too much, unfortunately. But I've been wandering on talking there, and seeing as I've only got about 15 minutes left before the 4-hour mark, I'm going to go ahead and call that one quits there, guys. Obviously, tune back into Wasted Space channel tomorrow at the usual time. We will be doing another PvPvP episode, and I'm feeling pretty confident at some point we're probably going to see battle this week. If not tomorrow, then possibly Friday. Because well, actually I was confident about that. Now that seeing all of this, even if someone is out there going through all the asteroids with radar on, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be detecting us, and it's going to be incredibly easy for us to detect them if they're running active radar at that level. Could you set the radar off and on a time-on loop? Yeah, you could, but I mean, at this point, I'm already at the point of saying if someone probably needs to be in the cockpit full-time on passives, then there's no real point to doing that. So if we, as much as I hate to throw it on Gaddis, it's probably going to wind up being on Stonebreaker, and he's probably going to have to wind up being the one responsible for it, because he's been doing a bang-up job on keeping all the resource generation going, and I'm glad he was willing to take that over for me. He deserves a ton of thanks from everyone on that one. Green is wasted talking, red is James talking with some feral, and blue is things are said if needs be. Sounds interesting. Anyways, guys, catch us with that tomorrow, and then obviously on Co-op on Saturday as well. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. If you liked the episode, go ahead and hit the like button. If you didn't like it, the dislike button is next to it, and definitely, if you do feel the need to exercise that, leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what I can do to make things better, because if you guys don't tell me what's broken, like the external audio, there's nothing I can do to actually go about fixing it. And in this case, unfortunately, I still have to keep finding out what is causing that problem, because at least as far as what I see on OBS right now, everything I'm seeing for the volume meters is fluctuating perfectly in time here. Maybe a slight lag on my vocal chat. I don't know, but yeah, I am still working into that, trying to figure out what it is. I mean, just like the whole Technicolor issues from earlier episodes, definitely something that I need to work on over time, and we'll figure it out. Either that, or I'm gonna have to start streaming in 15-20 minute chunks and restarting OBS, because that's, I guess, about the only thing that might fix it. Either that, or I turn off recording and then I don't have any of the footage that I need. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.